going to say?
First live into the abyss.
Going live. You're alive. All right, so welcome everyone to our first live into the abyss. I'm Kevin Lucia.
Tom McDonough.
Butch Manpuncher.
C.W. Breyer. So we're trying a new live edition. I can tell you that we're also...
this might fail miserably, by the way.
Wait, no. I can tell you that we're recording at the same time. So worst case scenario, there will be Into the Abyss. Comments are open. We are not going to worry about moderating them at all because we're very new at this. So we're not going to try to moderate. So kids, be nice. Anyway,
we can't censor, so if Tom goes streaking across the field, we can't stop it. I'm sorry.
I would call it a streak, more like an easy jog.
Easy jog. So, there's a little bit of reason why we decided to try the live streaming.
Mostly laziness.
Well, so let's make that sound more professional.
Okay.
Chuck and I are writers.
Yeah.
You say that every time.
I know we do.
Let's also remind Tom that he's Catholic. So
He's Catholic. Tom's
he's not a writer.
Tom's a non-writing Catholic. But it's a good problem. Chuck and I have gotten a lot more busy with our writing. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had...
And life.
Yeah,
life is busy right now.
I think for me, the biggest thing for me is I've been doing the production, but I've... I had a lot of commissioned projects lately that have been really taking up my time. So we decided that we would experiment with the live feed broadcast, because what we're doing is obviously we're recording a 2-hour show right to our laptop, but also going straight to YouTube. And again, at one of the times I've tested this, there was nothing but this loud, screeching, static sound. So if that's what you're getting right now, you can't even hear my voice, I humbly apologize, and there'll be a different episode uploaded later. But we thought we would try this so we could just sit down. Bottom line, Chuck and I are running into problems having time to edit. Mm-hmm. You know, so we wanted to be able to just sit down, throw up a show. And I've also noticed throughout the last year and a half that for whatever reason, live streams tend to get a few more views.
Yep, and it's separate, like you mentioned, the time. I've started taking some time and doing some editing with some video game reviews, which we started doing. I posted one today. I feel like those do better with some editing because you want to compare what you're discussing and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I may actually start handling a lot of those even just independently.
Yes, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
But yeah, that means I don't have time to do editing for these videos. You've been doing by and large, you know, the most of the editing. Plus, I'll say this. The core of this whole thing goes back to like being at cons and just talking horror for hours on end.
Right.
The live format is kind of what the heart of Into the Abyss is, which is we're just going to kick back, have fun, and talk about fun topics.
Right, exactly.
I am going to try to help out by... We're looking at doing some Into the Abyss t-shirts, and, you know, if you're interested in some merch, let us know in the comments.
We may have some Into the Abyss merch going on.
Eat, drink, and be scary.
That's right. All right, so as our per usual, we're going to start with our introductions, and we're going to talk about some of the horror that's on the landscape that we're looking at, and also, what are we drinking this evening? What are our libations? And remember, kids, if
21.
You're not 21, this is not for you.
I was an RA in college. I will find out, and I will turn you in.
I can imagine you never caught anyone, I bet.
I caught people.
Also, too,
the RA rule is don't be stupid. Keep it behind closed doors. Don't be stupid.
Also, too, just for the 3 people who are watching right now, as I can see, does that say there's 3 people watching right now?
Yep.
Yeah. For the 3 people who are watching right now, and for folks
we love you.
Yeah, we love you. Thank you. But for the folks who are probably more likely going to watch this later on in the week, we will let you know when we're going to take a break. So every 30 or minutes or so, we're going to get up and take a break. That'll be your time to go get something to eat or whatever.
Maybe we'll even check the comments then. That'd be a good time to check comments.
Yeah, it would be. But
we can figure out how to do that.
Well, we need to get another window open and actually go to the page. So we can. Although, no, the comments. Who commented?
Ted Hoost.
No way, Ted! What do you say?
Sounds good, guys.
Awesome, Ted!
Ted.
Look how excited they are.
So,
Ted
folks,
goes back to the way beginning.
Into the Abyss history, folks. This was actually Ted Hoost's idea. Okay, Ted Hoost is a YouTube producer. He does websites. He does digital video production. And he approached Chuck and I with this. And he is the man that actually kicked this off. And what it just turned out to be was
super busy.
Super busy. But the fact is this show would not exist without Ted.
He was the spark. He was the spark. He says, haha.
Yes, he was the spark. Absolutely. I'm glad to see Ted's there. All right, so guys, so what horror have you guys looking at, like on the horizon, have you guys been seeing that we want to go see? That's what. You want to do libations
I never do libations first.
All right, well, we're going to do libations first, I guess.
Well, we can still pronounce it.
Yeah. All right, we'll start over there.
Yeah, 20 minutes from now, we'll be like, libations.
Start over there.
Okay, so what I've got right now, I'm a big fan of everything that Southern Tier does. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Pumpkin is one of my favorite beers. Their pumpkin whiskey is amazing. You wouldn't think that pumpkin whiskey is like, but it's really, really good. They have a Rum King, which I don't know if you have Rum Kings over there.
Well, I have a box. We'll get to that.
You have a box. So they have a Rum King that's really great. What I'm drinking right now is this makes me think of Anne of Green Gables, because in Anne of Green Gables I
don't know where that came from.
Oh, well, because they end up giving it to the raspberry cordial.
Oh, okay.
They end up giving it to the raspberry cordial.
I was trying to picture Anne of Green Gables running through the fields, and I'm looking at that like
beer. So I'm drinking a Blackwater Series cherry cordial. That's where that comes from, because there's a scene in Anne of Green Gables where they accidentally get into the raspberry cordial and they don't realize it's alcoholic. So I'm drinking a cherry cordial imperial stout and dessert beer. It's got chocolate and cherry, very, very smooth. Before that, I had an Almond Gang double barrel double. Almond Gang, I believe, is in Cooperstown, New York.
They're the original brewer, U.S. brewer, right?
Yeah, and bourbon barrel beers have been my thing. I've really, really enjoyed them. So I had the double barrel double, and that was really good. And I started the night off with Southern Tier watermelon ale. It's actually, somebody on Facebook posted, sounds like a great boat drink. And I'm like, you're right. If you were tooling around on a boat and it's the middle of the day, you were doing some day drinking, then it's called Nice Slice watermelon beer. We've got another comment on there. Who commented?
It's Ted. He'll be back later.
Awesome.
So if there's ever another garage sale, we know what we're drinking.
Oh, we are day drinking in Tom's driveway with Nice Slice. So
you
go
have to
ahead.
get one of those little mini pools to put your feet in, so that it has that boat feel.
Look, I already live out in the country. I don't want to look that bad.
Oh. Okay, so Chuck, what are you drinking?
All right, let me get
Chuck's alcohol almost killed him, by the way.
Yes.
So, we got a great story.
So here's the box. Yes, I brought a box.
The Huggies.
All right, we'll get that out of the way. I've had these for a little while. I brought them. As was mentioned, we have Southern Tier. That's a bag here. You notice it's wet and everything just fell out of it. And I'll get to that story in a second. But we got a bunch of the pumpkin.
Oh,
Imperial
so
ales.
good. That basically tastes like October.
So
it just tastes like October.
So we got a half dozen here because apparently they got us a huge supply of those at my local grocery store.
So wonderful.
It's wet because I'm down one can. I had a can from a microbrewer that was there. I've had it for about 6 months. I guess it got warm and was put against something cold, but I was driving to Kevin's house and I thought my engine exploded because suddenly there was this massive kaboom. And it turns out the can exploded and absolutely awful later.
I can't wait for the cops to pull you over.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, if I get pulled over, I'm getting arrested. That's the bottom line because
one of us gets that phone call in the morning.
Oh my!
It doesn't matter if I'm stone cold sober. Like it's just that smell. My windows will be up and they'll still smell it. So it's gonna be a bad summer because that's gonna smell awful. Anyway, so I brought some stuff here. I found this. Five Farms, County Cork, Ireland, single batch Irish cream liqueur. My local whiskey distillery, 607 Waterman's.
607's got some great stuff, folks.
Their stuff is so smooth and it blends really, really well in mixed drinks.
Their jalapeno ginger is really good.
Yeah, my wife is not a big fan of the alcohol flavor, but with a good mixed drink, she likes it. She's tried stuff from there. She's loved all of them. So they go down really smooth. They just released their new temporary flavor. It's a limited edition, Tropical Breeze. So I'll be
We're like
mixing
getting
that.
ready for the summer here, aren't we?
We are.
We
And
had snow on the ground yesterday.
I already
by the
had
way.
some of that. I mixed it with dandelion and burdock soda, which is we all know is Tom's favorite.
I never heard of any of this.
Yeah, I know.
You get some of the weirdest stuff, man.
Yeah, I get some really weird stuff. But I thought, it's being that it's spring break season, let's just go full college and let's just
Oh, the hat's back.
Let's
No!
let's just
Oh, no!
Oh no, he's got aftershock!
Oh, my
What
God.
are you
I
doing?
can't open it because all that sugar in the aftershock just collects. So we're just gonna pound aftershock. So
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Children of the 90s, college kids
no.
90s, you remember this crap, don't you? You remember that was like the worst hangover in the world.
my mustache is just full of sugar crystals because this
Oh,
stuff is.
my God.
There's-
Okay, that's it. That's it. Next into the abyss, we're breaking out the Goldschlager. That's all there is to it.
How
We
about
are
some ice
breaking
beer
out
while
the
we're at it?
the sugar
Goldschlager
in the bottom
and some
so.
Zima. Do they still?
Oh.
Do they still
Oh,
make
Wait,
Zima?
I do have a surprise for you, Kevin.
Oh, God, he brings on a
No,
Zima.
there we go. I did bring, and it's wet because cans exploded. I brought us another bottle for a donation to the cave of pumpkin whiskey.
Whoa.
You told me about it. I tried it at home. I was planning on bringing pretty much a whole bottle.
It's gone, isn't it?
It's not gone.
Oh
But I've made
man!
significant progress on my own, which I don't normally do with whiskey, so I had to get a second bottle to donate. Because the other one's staying home with me.
Oh, it's so good, isn't
This
it?
stuff is so good.
So now, what did you mix it with?
I can drink this straight.
Okay, yeah, you can.
I can drink this straight.
Okay, so this is gonna sound terrible. This is gonna sound terrible and like really rednecky, but this is what I mix that with. So you could mix it with a Bailey's cream.
That would good. That would be good.
My stomach can't handle really heavy things. I mix that. Please, I'm gonna lose some man points here. I mix that with my wife's pumpkin spice creamer.
Oh, my God.
So I
dude.
mix that with my wife's pumpkin spice creamer, and it's so good.
Bro.
Bro, that's it. That's it. I'm just totally getting the Goldschlager next time. We got 8 things on there. What do we have 8 there? This is brand new for us, folks.
8 playbacks.
8 playbacks. Wow.
That means nothing for us right now. You are people of the future. We salute you,
People
playback
of
people.
the future. I'm going to actually have to have some of that aftershock. The last, I mean,
Here, we'll do it. We'll pass it around.
Oh, my God.
I expect
Fraternity
the,
style.
I expect the aftershock. Of this.
Yeah, that's
hold on.
something like
Hold
with like
on.
a herpes.
Hold
with.
on. Hold
Oh,
on.
Ah.
I'm clean.
Cleanish. Is that bringing back memories? Oh, and he's going back.
like raiding the medicine cabinet.
Oh my God! Actually, that's a good. I guess a good
It tastes like
similarity.
It tastes like college and bad decisions.
That's
You want
fun.
some? Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
I didn't actually didn't point my hat.
Remember, if you're not 21.
Oh,
That's it.
man, those memories.
And if you're above 21, you shouldn't be drinking aftershock either. So, I forgot to turn off my hat. I got my Team Oxford.
Ah, oh God. That reminds me of Happy Hall in college.
This is the world's worst fraternity.
That's it. We're definitely going to have to get a Goldschlager next time.
All right, well, it's time for mine before Kevin just
Yes,
skips me
please.
again.
Yes, please.
Well, I actually brought 2 types. I have Gator Bite, which I'm drinking right now. I went to C&D Wine and Liquor on Upper Front Street in Binghamton. Gator Bite is coffee liqueur and rum, made and bottled in Louisiana. I've been to New Orleans years ago for a cousin's wedding. I really wish I could go again. I mean, now when it comes out, it initially tastes like you mix rum with flat Coke.
Mm-hmm.
But then the coffee aftertaste comes in.
Very strong coffee aftertaste.
And besides that, I also got PB&W, peanut butter whiskey.
Ooh.
Haven't tried it yet. Chuck tried it. He said it might be more peanut butter.
Ooh, there's
than
another,
It's more
screwball.
peanut
there's
butter.
another comment on there.
Hi, Mr. McDonough.
Who is it?
Stormtrooping.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's a student.
Of
It's
course
a
it
It's a
is.
student.
They're
Yes.
gonna say Mr. McDonough. Instead
Which is
of
why
mine.
we say only 21.
If you're 21, only if you're
Anyways,
21.
I haven't tried the PB&W yet. Chuck tried it, and it's more peanut buttery
It's
than
very strong peanut butter.
screwball, which is okay. I mean, he didn't lick the top of it, right? Because I want to try it.
Oh, I
later.
used a shot glass.
Okay.
It's not Aftershock.
Oh,
God.
So, folks, we're already deciding that maybe going live was a terrible, terrible mistake.
But hi to whoever said hi. It's good to see you. Actually, I can't see you. You can see me. That's it.
That's creepy.
I know.
Do you have any more libations?
No, that is Chuck really kind of bought the farm on this one. That job must be treating you well.
All right. So things that are on our horror horizon. So these are things that either we've just started watching or things that we've seen that we want to check out. So Chuck, why don't you go ahead?
You wrote the list. I don't know. All right.
Oh, well, what do you have?
We discussed earlier the list, but I would say I'm trying to remember off the list. A Quiet Place 2 is heavily on the list.
Quiet Place 2,
I love
yep.
the first. Have you seen the first one yet?
No, I haven't. Not yet.
You have to.
I will have to see that first.
We'll do that in the movie viewing. It is awesome. I do think. I honestly do think you would really like it.
All right.
Oh yeah, Quiet Place is good.
It's a very good movie. It's actually, and it's a great movie for somebody who's kind of in on horror. It's got a really cool, strong family vibe to it.
Okay.
So
right.
it is good. Antlers. I know.
Yeah, that's
Antlers.
Wendigo, right? Is that a Wendigo story?
That's a Wendigo story.
Okay.
That one's been since before COVID. That was my number one anticipated movie of 2020, which is now my number one anticipated horror movie of 2021.
Yeah,
Quiet Place
COVID pushed a few of these movies back. Yeah.
Yep. I have been back to the theaters. I did see Godzilla. I saw Godzilla vs. Kong.
How was it?
I watched that on
I didn't
HBO
watch
Max.
it.
Then
I enjoyed it.
Then I watched the other ones too. I guess you have to watch the other ones, but the verses, it seemed like they just crammed a lot in there.
I will say
a lot of story substance was out.
It's not about story. I thought that they tried to do some. I tried to think the
Kaiju movie, man.
I think that the first one of this quadrilogy, they tried to do something new and unique. They made it kind of a eye on the ground. A lot of people complained they want more monster fighting. So after that, they said, "Screw it, more monster fighting." And that's what they did. This is a lot of monster fighting. I will say this, that after the second movie came out, which was Kong, Skull Island, they announced it was going to be King of Monsters and then Godzilla vs. Kong. After movie 2, I already knew if I had written down what I thought the plot would be for movie 4, I would have checked every single box, including the surprise monster that shows up and how the movie ends. So they really did not get creative in it, but
that's what the people wanted, I guess.
That's what people wanted, monsters punching.
So this is not horror at all.
This is not horror at all, but no.
Well, no, that's horror at all. It's a monster movie.
Traditionally, it is. I think at this point, the horror, it's a creature feature. I think at this point, Godzilla, the horror aspect is kind of washed out. We want to see monsters punching each other in the face.
Did you see the Snyder Cut yet?
I did not.
Did you?
They have a Snyder Cut for Godzilla vs. Kong?
The Snyder Cut. Justice League.
Oh, yeah, yes, I did.
What'd you think?
I did
This has nothing to do with horror, but this is the way we roll.
I did like it. It gave more substance to the story. There were some good parts from the previous one, but this one has, they have more substance.
I really, really enjoyed it. In fact, it actually makes you wonder how the heck the Whedon cut ever was thought. How do you think that was appropriate? That was just awful. The only issues I have, and they're not even really issues. First of all, Zack Snyder really loves his slow-mo. Like, really loves his slow-mo.
Really loves slow-mo. I've seen Zack Snyder movies. He really loves
slow-mo. I don't think the nightmare segment at the end really made a whole lot of sense. But you're right. It's a far superior film. Okay, so
I'll do one. Okay, I'll do one more horror movie. This is one. I just saw. Was it last night or the night before? The trailer for Conjuring 3.
Oh,
and
okay.
I know that
I'm
you love the first two. I enjoyed them as well. Have you seen Conjuring 1 and 2?
I think I have.
Okay, I thought the first Conjuring was one of the best recent horror movies that have been made. In the last, I don't know what it was, last 10 years or so.
Is that with the kid with the cancer down in the basement gets possessed?
No. So I've actually got an interesting story to dovetail off that because, folks, that's what we do here.
Go ahead. And I know that there's this whole historical aspect of it, and there's real people behind it. But just from a movie,
we're going to talk about that.
From a movie standpoint, Conjuring 1 was fantastic. I thought Conjuring 2 was good, not as good, but I thought it was still very good. So I am excited for 3. Go watch the trailer; it just released.
So, just to clarify for anyone who may be watching, the Conjuring movies follow the supposed exploits of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Oh, I did see those then.
So, it's come out over the years that apparently Ed and Lorraine Warren were pretty terrible people. They were fraudulent. Not only were they fraudulent, there was some, I think Ed and Lorraine had
Seriously,
you gotta,
do you
you
have
gotta
to do
watch out.
that?
That's
If
the
you
main
had a
one.
collar, you could pop the collar right
Dude,
now.
that's capitalism for you. Ed and Lorraine Warren.
So, okay, just so you know, if you keep hitting that aftershock anymore, this futon is here for you. Anyway, so
little sips.
so
Little
yeah,
sips.
it's if you're watching the Conjuring movies, if you've enjoyed them, that's okay. I would encourage you to enjoy them. It's best to think of them as fictional characters entirely because they're real characters. Now, you mentioned the guy who had the kid that had the cancer. That was a Connecticut haunting.
Yes, a haunting in Connecticut.
Haunting in Connecticut. So the Warrens were actually involved with that as well. And there's a popular horror author by the name of Ray Garton, excellent writer. He actually has dealt with the Warrens personally, and he said they were such shysters and charlatans that they were just disgusting people. So it's very, very interesting. The movies are great. Just pretend that Ed and Lorraine Warren never existed, and those are totally fictional movies.
And I'll tell you, this third one, they're going.
I like them. I love
Yeah.
the actors who do them.
They're going with a very heavy murder mystery vibe on this one, and with a witchcraft foundation below the murder mystery. So it will be different. It will be different than the first two.
So do you have any others?
That's all I can remember. You have the list.
Yes.
You have the list.
Halloween Kills, of course. We're definitely looking forward to the Halloween Kills. They're doing the reboot of Well, no, it's not a reboot. Candyman. It's
I'm excited for that
supposedly
one.
a continuance. Yeah.
I have to watch the first one. I haven't seen it yet. I want to watch it.
Be my victim.
It's 92. I was
Tony
10, I was 10 years
man.
old. I was
I
10 years
kind
old.
of like the fact that first one kind of didn't touch first, and I realized, well, they did it in the ghetto, the
Yeah.
Green projects.
So if anyone has not watched it so far, go on Shudder and watch Black Noir when it talks about the history of blacks in horror cinema. And the Candyman was a groundbreaker.
Mhm.
It really was, taking place in the projects, talking about giving and Tony Todd is obviously he's a horror villain and he's black, but he also plays it with a semblance of like this tragic dignity. So it's really, really, really a great role. We talked about Spiral.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Super
never
exciting.
seen a Saw movie ever.
I've seen most of Saw 1. I saw chunks. I saw a part here. Saw a part here.
I think I'm the one who saw the most of all of them, but I didn't see all of them.
Never
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
a Saw movie ever. But a Saw movie,
Gore porn is not my genre. I've never really
Well,
been drawn to it.
and-
Hostel came out, and I'm like, like you get the idea. I'm
well,
like,
so and that maybe is like a random topic to discuss later.
Yeah.
Gore porn is a really debated. So we'll talk about that later. Gore that could be a random discussion
Yeah.
topic later. But anyway, I've never seen a Saw movie ever.
The first one, I do know that I do the twist. I heard the twist before I ever saw the movie. I saw chunks of the movie. So I've
Right.
seen scenes on it, stuff like that. It's well done, and the twist is very clever. But I just wasn't interested in seeing the further ones.
Anyway, a Saw movie with not only Chris Rock, but Samuel L. Jackson.
It reminds me of Seven.
Sign me up
It
for
looks
that.
awesome. It
Yeah.
looks awesome.
All right. So also too, Scream 5
Mm-hmm.
with Sidney Prescott. They're all back.
Oh my goodness!
No, you know what? I got to tell you, I did a recent rewatch of all the Scream movies, and I was really, really impressed about how postmodern is and how it seemed to really reinvent itself every single time. So I'm super looking forward to that. This is a side, maybe a slant, but Morbius the Living Vampire. Jared Leto, who also apparently, if you want to be part of the Jared Leto experience, you can spend an ungodly amount of money and spend time on an island with Jared Leto as he's dressed up like Jesus. But that's a different
There were
topic.
some guidelines.
That's a different topic entirely. I'm excited to see the more. I got to tell you, did any of you guys see Venom?
No, I
No.
didn't.
It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be trash. It was not trash. I'm cautiously optimistic for Morbius. I really am.
It looks interesting.
And I hope.
And I'll take my Jared Leto singing and acting rather than in Jesus cosplay.
So the last two things I want to know, unless you guys have any other things.
No.
Nope.
A lot of people are talking about them on Amazon. A lot of people saying that's just really, really crushing emotionally and really, really powerful. So I'm really looking forward to that. And one that I'm actually watching already is The Sinner on Netflix.
Which Chuck just told us got filmed in some local areas.
In
around here.
Owego. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So The Sinner is starring Bill Pullman and Jessica Biel. And it's more, you could call it a police procedural, so maybe it's not horror, but it's really dark.
Mhm.
And what I think is really great is Bill Pullman is doing an excellent job of playing a thoroughly unlikable character, but yet you start feeling bad for him. And he's been kicked out of his house by his wife. He's very emotionally remote, very distant. He's trying very hard to connect with his wife, and his wife's like kicking him out. And of course, also on the side, he likes to go visit his dominatrix prostitute that like pretty much abuses him. Now, again, in any other show, any other actor, this would come off as being like, whatever. But Bill Pullman is one of those, I think, underrated actors. Bill Pullman, who also graduated from Delhi Tech, by the way. He's one of those underrated actors that he's just bringing something to it where you're like, dude, this guy's kind of messed up, and he's kind of unlikable, but I'm really enjoying him. So that's The Sinners on Netflix. I'm halfway through season 1. So that's our libations and our upcoming horror. Now, normally what we would do in the past is just cut this and then reset for our next scene.
That's how editing works.
That's right. But with the live format, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 10-minute break. So if you are watching over these 10 minutes or so, this is the time to grab a drink, grab some food.
If you're 21.
If you, well, it could be a
juice?
Pepsi. It could be a Pepsi. It's
You
a
can have
drink.
a juice pouch.
I didn't say take a shot.
I have juice pouches.
Yeah.
I have juice
Um,
pouches at my house.
If you're watching us later on this week, this would also be a time to take a break. Who just commented?
Sean Calabrese. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. Hi, Mr.
Sean! Yes!
Oh, look, he only talks to me, not to you.
Oh, well, it's because he didn't take honors English this year. I don't know why.
Yeah, Sean,
Okay,
that's
so
cool.
at
That's
this
fine.
point,
You know where you're
at this point, we have 5 more comments than we thought we would have. So that's pretty much. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we will be back. When we come back, we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the difference between indie horror in the 80s and 90s and indie horror, not even indie horror, I guess I shouldn't say that, low budget horror. We're going to talk about the difference between low budget horror in the 80s and 90s and low budget horror now. So we'll see you guys in about 10 minutes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, God, my knees just popped.
So remember, the microphone is still picking stuff up.
Yeah.
I'll keep you entertained by singing. No,
Actually-
I'm not.
Actually, this would also be a
You
good
don't
time.
want that to happen.
This would also be a good time to talk about your works. Like if one of us don't have to take a break,
Yeah.
you can do a PSA about your books. and
Okay, I'll do a PSA about my works. So, hey, we're up to 4 concurrent viewers. So, if you're logging in for the first time, welcome to Into the Abyss. I'll talk a little bit about what I do. C.W. Breyer. My name's Chuck. C.W. Breyer is my pen name. I write dark fantasy. I write horror. Mostly longer works is dark fantasy. Short works is horror. Debut novel is Whispers from the Depths. It's got murderous water spirits and water mages. Water mage is trying to rescue her sister and escape from the soldiers that have enslaved their people. But in order to escape, they're also going to have to survive a murderous water spirit that's chasing them through the halls of a castle. It's a little bit more... It is dark fantasy. It's a lot more focused than a lot of fantasy, and I've had some people mention that as well. Usually fantasy is very epic in scope. This is more like a, like your sci-fi movie survival horror. They're trying to get out of this castle as the water is chasing them down and finding whole new ways to kill them. I actually pitched the story to my publisher. I said I found new ways to kill people with water. So that's the story with Whispers from the Depths. If you want to look it up, I also have a short story collection, Wrath and Ruin, and I've been published in a number of anthologies. As for works that are coming up, well, right now I've got another novel that I'm pitching around to agents. It's mostly done until the agents come in and say what to do, how to edit it. That one is a gothic horror comedy mystery that I'm pitching now. If you read my short story collection, Wrath and Ruin, with Gideon and Rose, I've now turned that into a novel. What else I have? Let's see, I have another project I'm doing. I see Kevin over there. Yeah, but I did a middle grade comedy sci-fi. Bringing some monster stuff like that, having some fun, doing something a little bit more, kid friendly. Something that my kids would enjoy. Finishing up that now, but I'm also working on some horror. I will be working on a short story collection this year. We will see if it comes out this year or early next year, but I am working on a short story collection of horror. And we have more comments. The Bean Man, hello, goodbye. So we appreciate the time you stopped by. We hope to see more of you. Sean says hi, Colin. So anyway, yeah, we'll fill with time. I can juggle. We'll get some juggling balls. I'll entertain everybody by juggling.
So we have hello, goodbye.
Hello, goodbye.
Who else?
The Bean Man. Sean said hi, Colin. So I'm guessing the Bean Man is Colin.
Colin Wickheiser? That'd
Don't
be
know.
kind of cool.
Hi, Colin. It was fun while you're here.
If that's Colin Wickheiser, he's a great student, great kid.
Colin, that was the best 3/4 of a second of my day. I just will say that. So,
So we're just waiting for Mr. McDonough to join us.
yep, and also explain here, mentioning students. Kevin and Tom are teachers. So
Yeah.
Kevin's back. Kevin, what do you teach?
I teach high school English.
So and
See.
Tom teaches history. He's not
He
here.
does.
We
He
can make it
does.
up. No, we stop. What? He's got a gym teacher vibe. So he's a gym teacher. Tom is a gym
He
teacher.
has a gym teacher
He
vibe.
loves his short shorts.
And he wears his socks up to his knees.
And floor hockey is life. So what was that? Tom,
Yes.
we let everyone know that you're a gym teacher who loves short shorts and floor hockey is life.
Dude. Come on. He a gym teacher?
No, he teaches history.
I teach
So we
history,
have- it
global,
says 12
U.S.,
playbacks.
pig
This is
What are
delicious.
12 playbacks?
that they,
Probably start later.
they came in later, so they played it back.
We are YouTube stupid. So
What is that?
this is Five Farms, County Cork, Ireland, single batch Irish cream liqueur, and that tastes like a vanilla milkshake.
It's
Oh, that's
liqueur,
not
my
good.
people.
Oh, that's dangerous. Get that away from me.
That is phenomenal.
All right, so we ready to go?
I'm gonna forget the aftershock. Actually, I can mix the aftershock.
Do you need to take a break at all?
No, I'm
You
good.
know what that taste would taste great in?
Pretty much everything.
Mhm.
This would taste great with breakfast.
Pumpkin.
This would taste. All right, I'm gonna drink half of this and then add pumpkin.
Let's go right ahead.
So I'm gonna put this up there. I don't even remember where I saw this. And it was this, I do know I got it at the cash register.
Are we
I
ready
don't-
to
I
end
don't
our
know. We're
break?
gonna go back in, but here we'll put it up there. I don't know if you can see it. Five Farms.
Age 21 and older. So I think
Yeah.
maybe Colin Wickheiser stopped by too.
Oh, okay.
He said he called himself what? Bean?
The Bean Man. It says
Bean
hello
Man.
and goodbye.
Are there
Here's-
any other Collins that seen? Because then Sean said, "Hey, Colin."
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Well, you know everybody. Are we ready to
No,
go?
I don't.
Well, I mean, it could be a good guess. I mean, it's definitely not Josh because they had the Josh battle today,
Right,
and all the
right.
Joshes were whittled down to
What's
one.
under the two there? We're getting used to the screen. here,
Current
folks.
viewers, we're going back. We went from 3 to 2. We have to entertain. Kevin, start dancing.
Ah.
All right, let's get back.
Ready to go? Okay,
Let's go.
So, the next thing we wanted to talk about is, so I have spent a lot of time recently watching, and by the way, those two viewers, thank you very much. We love you. So I spent a lot of time watching. If you love horror and you haven't gotten a Shudder subscription yet, what's wrong with you? I've been watching a lot of 80s horror movies. In fact, I'm going to have a segment later on tonight called Crazy 80s horror movies. Here's the thing. Since we started this show, I have watched an ungodly amount of horror movies.
I can agree with that.
I had foot surgery last summer and spent 2 months in a chair. So I watched an ungodly amount of horror movies.
He tells us a lot.
I even watched a horror movie that had, oh God, what's his name? Ron Jeremy in it, for God's sakes.
He's in jail now, I think, right?
Yeah, he's in jail
on
now.
Trial.
On trial. That's right.
So
I thought it was finished.
I don't know anything about it.
The thing that I started noticing, you better grab a glass for me too, because I'm gonna have some of that. I'm gonna have some of that pumpkin and some of that Irish stuff. So the thing that I've developed, glass. There's another. If you the shelf behind your shoulder where you can't get.
You prick.
I will get it. What do you want?
Thank you, Chuck.
Yes. Glass or the
No,
skull?
down low. If you down low,
This
you'll
one?
see the. Yeah, actually, that would be perfect. That would be perfect. Yes.
There you go.
So I want pumpkin and. But anyway, so what I've really noticed in watching these horror movies over the last couple of years is the 80s low budget. Now, I have to clarify, especially because I have several friends. Pass the back, Chuck. I have several friends who are involved in indie horror making. So I have to clarify. I'm talking about cheap, low budget. You got any of that left?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Here you go.
I'm talking
More
about
of that.
cheap, low budget. I'm not talking about indie because I have a lot of friends that are very much involved in the indie horror genre. But I've noticed a distinct difference between the indie or the low budget horror movies of the 80s and 90s and the low budget horror movies now. And again, I posted this on Facebook, and some people didn't quite understand what I was saying. They were trying to compare the low budget movies back then to big budget movies now, and the low budget had more imagination than the big budget. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's a great movie on Netflix right now called The Last Blockbuster. There's one Blockbuster video left.
And their Twitter feed is fire.
It's in Bend, Oregon.
Have you seen their Twitter feed?
No, I haven't.
They're pretty much allowed to do whatever they want.
Of course,
and they are hilarious.
So anyway,
it's like an extra spicy version of Wendy's.
A comment.
Okay. Hi guys, Gillian. Gillian.
Blue is from Cemetery Dance.
Hey, Blue.
Blue Gillian is the managing editor of the Cemetery Dance website.
Yep.
And he is the bomb. He is. I'm just going to say the bomb.
Blue is awesome.
He is awesome. So anyway,
Wait, let's start drinking. He's talking.
Yeah. So on the last Blockbuster, they're talking about independent video stores. So what I'm talking about, like low budget horror, I'm not talking about low budget horror has more soul than today's mainstream movies. I'm just talking low budget horror. You walk into that video store, you're like, what the heck is this movie? I don't even know who this person is. So I've been watching a lot of those, and I'm going to have a segment later on tonight called Crazy 80s Horror. And then I watched a lot of the new ones today that are low budget.
He says, Kevin!
Yeah! So I feel like the low budget 80s and 90s horror, I like it better than the low budget horror now. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? I have thoughts.
Yes.
I've been talking long enough. Yes.
Well, it's funny you brought that up because one of my favorite YouTube channels, Good Bad Flicks, this guy covers the whole spectrum, action and horror and all that. And he also explores, and one in particular was Scarecrows. That was a 1980s horror movie. And I remember it because, first of all, he brought up Blockbuster. Now, for us, back in the day, was Video King.
Yeah.
Run by the Wilsons.
Video
God bless you,
King.
Wilsons.
Yeah. Too, but the cool people went to Video King.
Well, it was funny because they had a horror section that was done up like a haunted house, so it got you in the mood.
Yep.
And I always saw Scarecrow. So
Right next to the saloon section.
That wasn't Westerns.
Or for me, our local one was Video Circus. Video Circus.
Anyways, Scarecrows, Good Bad Flicks was exploring Scarecrows, and he was on the money. First of all, they put a lot of heart into it. It was a good movie. A bunch of crooks robbed a Marine base, and one of them tried to steal the money and parachute into this field. The others followed him, and Scarecrows come to life and start killing people. They shot, for lack of a better word, on location. They rented this old house out in the middle of nowhere, and they were talking about how they're trying to find funding, and this one guy who got a part in the movie funded it. He may have had a little, we just don't wonder where he gets his money from situation, but he goes, oh, here's the money, gives you a bunch of cash. If anything, I think for 80s and 90s, low budget, I think they put a lot of heart into it. Because they have to. And Kevin, you brought up earlier of how they had to use camera equipment and technology that's not like today. I mean, because to be honest, and you can be honest, today you can just grab a phone or your laptop and make it low budget. Now, it's up in the air, and we're not saying, oh, if it's low budget today, it stinks. Recently, I saw a review for the movie Host, which literally was a quarantine lockdown movie, and that the actors filmed from their homes. I guess it was pretty good. So I think, I'm not trying to sound old here, I think in the 80s and 90s, people had more heart because they had to put everything into it as much as they possibly could.
What are your thoughts, Chuck?
I think it gets into what's the goal. What is the purpose of the movie? I think people who are creating indie horror today, to some
Well,
extent,
and let's clarify. We're not necessarily talking indie horror.
Yeah.
We're talking bottom of the barrel, low budget horror.
So I think that the line's kind of bummed down. I'll explain that in a second. I think a lot of people are going for art. I think that's what's happening. Because it's become more accessible to make horror, a lot of people want to be good storytellers and create art, create scares, create something, that causes you to think. A lot of people, horror is a great genre for creating low-budget movies.
Right.
And so they can create art. I think a lot of people in the 80s, they didn't have a lot of budget. Horror is a great genre, even back then. It was meant to make something fun. I think there was a difference of let's make something fun versus let's make something that makes you think. And I say that as somebody who really likes a clever artsy movie. I like a movie that's comparable to what you would read in English class in high school. I like those kind of movies. I want to think, but sometimes it's fun just to kick back and watch something silly. I love Mystery Science Theater 3000, so let's just have some fun. Those still exist. I think, though, those might be hard to find. I don't know if it's a matter of they're not being made. I do know that those exist. I think what happened is low budget horror has become such a solid genre for a niche audience that a lot of clever, well-written, artistic movies kind of take the focus.
So, like, we recently watched, unfortunately, we weren't able to convert it, VFW.
Yeah.
That's a bigger budget studio co-opting a lower budget aesthetic.
Yes. And it was a good movie, but it was a good serious movie. I think it's really hard to find those just... I'll use the word schlocky. Those schlocky horror movies, I do know those still exist, but I think that they've been pushed out of the spotlight. And perhaps a lot of the talent that would have gone towards making a fun movie is now making something a little bit more serious. So maybe it's also the talent has been cannibalized away from making just fun movies, because there are still those schlocky movies. I don't remember the name of it. It was like the Santa Jaws or whatever. Like there was the shark one. It was just plain terrible. Like they tried to make a schlocky horror movie. It was bad. It was hard to enjoy even as a bad movie. It was just flat out bad.
Right.
It's there's a lot of tools out there to make.
The most enjoyable time was going to the bathroom.
Yeah. It's one like there's bad movies like Birdemic, which we should watch on the show. Birdemic,
we'll have to watch Rubber at some point.
Okay, and Birdemic is bad, but you can laugh at it and make jokes, and it's like this is schlocky horror, but it's hilarious. The Santa Jaws, whatever it was just bad. I think that heart is still out there, but it's been pushed out of the spotlight and maybe not as common as it used to be.
You mentioned something that's really important because I posted about this on Facebook. So you mentioned, art house films or arty, and somebody mentioned, he's like, look, I think in the 80s, horror was a big rock party and everyone was invited to rock on.
I would say that's an accurate description. That's an accurate description.
So everyone's just like, we're just going to boogie down and rock out, whereas now it's also too...
I mean, some of the biggest movers in horror and the award winners and the movies that get a lot of attention in articles are the low-budget indie ones, because horror, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that in, let's say, fantasy. Fantasy is really hard to pull off with a low budget.
Right.
Horror, you can do it, and you can make waves with it, and you can make millions on it. And so I think that the medium and large studios have kind of gobbled it up, and you don't have that rock party aesthetic.
One thing also too, Mike Lombardo is the brainchild behind Real Splatter Productions, and he's really really great stuff. I would highly recommend a White Doomsday off of on Amazon Prime. Who else just posted? Someone else just posted.
It's blue again. Love that description of the 80s horror.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So
that description that you mentioned, I love that description.
Mike Lombardo posted that one thing that's also I am probably noticing is there is just a difference between VHS analog film and digital film that you just can't reproduce in digital film. You're not going to be able to reproduce that, and that there's something about shooting on that. I mean, isn't that why Abrams kind of went a little retro with The Force Awakens, where he didn't want to do that highly digital CGI. And Tom and I were talking before, kind of in the pregame, which we're now taping the pregame, so that'll be available later on this week. But that
we're talking about ways to kill you.
No, we weren't talking about that at all. No, we were talking about the fact that it's the pros and cons of small budget horror is the same thing as pros and cons of self-publishing. The pros of self-publishing and the pros of
sorry, Kevin.
So this is a typical dynamic of Into the Abyss.
He starts talking,
trying to be all serious and philosophical, and then Tom farts, and then Chuck laughs, and then I'm trying to just kind of plow through it, and then maybe Tom make a joke about masturbation, and I'm
okay. That was about a year ago.
It was.
It wasn't even a joke. It was a freaking movie you made us watch.
Wow. Anyway, so we were talking about before that in the 80s and 90s, if you made a low-budget horror film, you still had to have access to professional camera equipment, professional editing equipment, and even if you were a crappy actor, you were an actor. You were trying to make it. You were a crappy actor, but you were trying to make it. Whereas today, anyone could grab a phone or a camera or the software that we have on this very laptop, make a movie, and try to get distribution. So it's kind of the pros and cons of self-publishing. The pros, more opportunities for everyone. The cons,
everyone.
Yeah. So yeah. So do we have any parting comments about that, or?
I will say I think there's a parallel with what's going on with horror with comedy, which is another genre that can do quite well with low budget.
Right.
Compare 80s comedy to modern comedy as well. Modern comedy feels more serious and more artistic. Like they'll try to make you chuckle, and then they'll try to have this heartbreaking moment, and then they'll go back to try to make you laugh again. Whereas 80s, the first movie comes to mind is like Stripes, and then you show it today, and people laugh and stuff like that. But then they say, "Oh, that's also kind of problematic." It's just, I think there's also an interesting social dynamic that's going on here as well that I think does hit horror as well. Not so much the problematic aspect, but it's more of the people are kind of thinking more into it. So because you're thinking, you create movies that have more of a thinking aspect, but also sometimes maybe thinking too much. Right. So it's a little bit of both. I think a lot of times in the 80s with comedy, it's more like let's just throw what's up there and let's see what's funny. Versus now you gotta let's focus more on the script.
Right.
I think some of that same serious vibe has kind of hit horror as well, which does lean into that. Today we have a low budget, but let's make horror. Let's make something serious, and that's introspective.
Awesome. Any parting comments?
No, let's move on because.
Okay, so
the later this gets, the worse you're gonna get.
All right, so I don't know what he's talking about. Did someone add another comment?
Blue. There's an element of outrageousness that was expected in the 80s, but is lost now, and I think
absolutely,
that outrageousness, which is a great word. I think that's that same thing I would say for horror. There's that outrageousness is kind of gone from horror a little bit.
So later on tonight, I'll be doing a segment called "Crazy 80 Horror Movies I've Seen on Shudder," and that dovetails perfectly.
We should just replace one of us with blue because blue is better.
I know, right?
Blue's smarter.
All right, so we're going
All
to take another 10-minute break. Last minute turned out to be 10 minutes, so we'll just take another break. Again, if you're watching us, the three of you, thank you, we love you. This is the time to go get something to eat or drink. If you're watching us later on this week, again, the next 5 minutes or so will be the time to either fast forward through or to get something to
And
eat.
before that, you know what? For anyone who is watching and would like to comment, why don't you give us some scary ideas or stuff that would look good for, scary stories or scary situations you've been in? It's always good to, compile it and see how
if
that
questions
all
or
works
comments
out.
come up, obviously we're looking at them or we're mentioning them by name. Or future segments we don't want to go till 3 o'clock in the morning tonight. So we're not going to go, super late. But if you have ideas for cool segments, help us out. Just mention it and we'll tackle them later.
Oh yeah, I mean it's weird. It's kind of like did you ever have to tell someone about a scary dream you had?
I think did we do a segment on scary dreams? I don't remember. No.
I have no idea because
I don't remember.
I felt terrible today. I took like a 4-hour nap before I came here.
No, I know.
But I had a dream that.
Oh no, we talked about things that kind of scared us when we were younger. I think we didn't do dreams.
I think we may have done dreams.
I don't remember.
We're getting old here.
Yeah, we're old now.
No, I just had this weird dream that we were being attacked by a demon or something like that, haunted house type of situation, and it's one of those really scary things where you wake up and then you fall asleep because you're still tired.
Yeah. Scary dreams. I don't know. It's hard to say. Most of my dreams end up being scary. Scary scenarios turn into action films. Like a lot of
Threat level Midnight Briar.
Yeah. It's hard to say. A lot of my dreams, first of all, they very rarely involve people that I know. So that kind of takes that personal aspect out of it. So it's not like my kids or my wife or my family members are in my dreams. It's more cast members. It feels like actors in the movie.
There you go.
And so if somebody gets eaten by a dinosaur, which happens often in my dreams,
Weird.
it's just someone playing a role. And then jetpacks come in. But a lot of my dreams have jetpacks for some reason. I don't know why. Guns.
A lot of my dreams have jetpacks.
My
for
dreams
some
start
reason.
out like the movie Alien and turn into Jurassic Park meets James Bond, and I'm having a blast. And the one thing there was an article that talked about like why you can't kill the monster of the dreams. You can never stop the threat. It's always there, but I never get eaten. But everybody around me gets eaten. I don't know.
All right, let's stop there before Kevin chimes in because he'll give us 20 minutes.
You guys don't need to take a break?
No,
we're fine.
All right, so we're ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to book talks. Okay. So this is also a new segment of Into the Abyss. You'll notice that we have 3 books up there that have been up there this entire time. And it'll be up there for the whole show. And that
Until you buy them.
What's that?
Go buy them now.
Oh, yeah, well, exactly. So that's going to be kind of a new feature. Those are not the only 3 books we're going to talk about. However, those are going to be our feature books. The books that we say to you, go buy these right now. The Elementals by Michael McDowell, Come With Me by Ron Malfi, and The Children of Red Peak by Craig DeLuey. So, Chuck, why don't you begin with your book talks for this time?
I did the Elementals by Michael McDowell. I did the audiobook. So just from the audiobook perspective, I will say it was extremely well acted. So if you're into audiobooks, this is a good one. The Elementals. What caught my attention is I'm like, this is a book I thought I had heard about a long time ago. I thought this was an older book, but then I started seeing it everywhere in Barnes & Noble. I looked into it. Yeah, it was originally published in 1981. I think it's one of those things where the publisher goes to their back catalog, something that hasn't sold in a while, give it a brand new cover, pretend like it never existed before, and voila, you have a new book. That's what this is. What is the Elementals? It is Southern Gothic horror through and through. I'm actually going to emphasize Southern Gothic more than horror. I would say this gets into more the culture and relationship aspect of Southern Gothic, the style, more than the horror. There are some horrific scenes, but if you've been born and raised on horror and you've seen pretty much everything that's out there and read everything that's out there, I'll be honest, it's probably not going to scare you all that much, but it has that Southern Gothic horror vibe. This was published in 1981. That does show. I don't want to make this a criticism. It's hard to say. But the reality is, and I know this, we've been talking a lot about my agents, my publishers. The reality is that people's interests and attention spans have changed. That's always going to happen. The internet age, that happens. Books that were written in the 70s and 80s will feel kind of slow to people who are, more invested in modern books, let's say. So I putting out there, who wouldn't like this book? If you like a high-paced modern book, this might feel a little slow for you. But if you kind of like that old classic feel to a book, you'll probably gobble this up. I enjoyed it. I think it was really well done. Michael McDowell is a brilliant writer. The characterization, the descriptions, the dialogue, all the stuff that goes into the book is top-notch. It's extremely well written. People were kind of concerned about, cultural aspects, being that this is from 1981. It does have and this is a trope, I'll name the trope, the magical Negro. That's been known as a trope. That's
quite a term.
That's a great term. That's not my term. I think it was Spike Lee actually kind of coined the phrase, or a Spike Lee movie I think coined the phrase. That's
I like the last comment.
What's the last comment?
All hail Mr. McDonough.
Yes.
Who's it from?
Chuck?
Plagiarized memes. Nice. Good
name.
I have a strong feeling it's one of two people.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, so yeah, that's not my term. That's a term that's an established trope, a named trope. So that has there. So that trope will make it feel a little bit older. I think the style of writing, it feels like a 1981 book. But is it well written? Is it an interesting story? Yes. Did it scare me? I wouldn't say it scared me. This is not the scariest book. But if you want to read Southern Gothic, if you want a prime example of what Southern Gothic can be, this might be the most Southern Gothic of all Gothic stories I've read. It is a phenomenal example of the genre.
Nice.
So yeah, so it's one of those stories I would say, here's what was strong. Here's what might bug some people. So if the elements that bug you kind of come to mind, maybe this isn't the book for you. But if you can look past that and the strong aspects sound interesting, go for it. This is a great book.
Is there another comment before that? Is it a new one or no?
Oh, Blue. We were talking about dreams during the break.
Okay,
but we'll come back to it. Let's talk about dreams.
Okay. So. All right. So Tom, any books?
Yes, actually, I am looking at.
You'll notice I'm going last because I am the longest winded. Go ahead.
And we will try to keep him within constraints.
It's hard.
We're going to do the finger poke.
They can't hope to stop me. They can only hope to
All right,
detain
so
me.
before he tries to jump in and take my time, I'm doing Feed, a 2010 zombie apocalypse movie written by Seanan McGuire, but written as Mira Grant, by that pen name.
Oh,
It actually
I didn't know that.
won
That's
second
cool.
place for Best Novel at 2011 Hugo Awards. Now, it's funny because when I read it, this is back when our school had an actual library instead of became a learning center. And that was just left out, so I borrowed it without checking it out. Don't tell Cassie Frog. I brought it back. Anyways, it's good because it's set several decades after the apocalypse, which was, and they actually gave some reasons. It was a mutant combination of man-made cures for cancer and the common cold. Unfortunately, created a new virus that wiped out most life on the planet, and humanity exists in tightly controlled areas. Like cities have been reborn, but you have to go through decontamination a lot. You have to go through constant checks. Some people can be infected but not actually show symptoms. It's focusing. It's actually part of a series, Flesh News series. Very much like Dante, though. I think the first one's the best, and the rest can just forget it. Anyways, it centers on a blogging team. Blogging has kind of replaced traditional news, and the blogging team, brother and sister plus some others, were assigned to cover a presidential campaign because they're having elections. And I kind of like how they really broke things down, not just with the zombie apocalypse, but the journalists. You had newsies who report factual news, stewards who create opinions based on facts, aunties who do feel-good content, so recipes and songs and arts and crafts. It's all on computers now. Fictionals who create fictional stories and poetry. And one of my favorite, Irwins, field reporters, a.k.a. go out, poke it with a stick. named for Steve Irwin.
That's awesome.
I mean, so sometimes
That's
they would
awesome.
actually go out into the old, deserted towns and villages where the dead still roam to get, news on it.
Crikey.
But it comes about with a conspiracy theory, the issue of faith, make a situation worse so we can all be more faithful. It was good storytelling, didn't patronize the readers. It was a very interesting take. And then it just came to me, and I wish I brought it with me, but I don't have it. I also read a very short novel. It's up in the air if I would call it horror or not. It's called Mystery Road by one Kevin Lucia.
Oh, no!
And reading this book, I mean, the author had some very angry sexual connotations. So, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay, Kevin, it was a good short story. There was some scary elements to it, but it's also kind of a growing up, coming of age situation.
What's the German term?
Bildungsgunroman.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, Fräulein, yeah. So if you have a chance, and if you're any of our students, you know what? Mr. McDonald's got all of Mr. Lucia's books in his room, because I think that's where they belong, in my room. Underneath the golden Buddha, you can always feel free to borrow them. And the gas mask you gave me, too.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you wrote something silly in the book as well.
I don't know.
Probably.
Is that another comment there?
I was going to wait till he's done. Before
No, I'm done.
You're done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then everybody. Blue said, looking for other Southern Gothic stories. Choir of font is weird.
Choir of Ill Children by Tom Piccarelli.
Yeah. So this font is weird. I can't tell the difference between a Roman numeral 3 and ill with a capital I. So
Sweet.
yeah, Choir of Ill
Okay.
Children by Tom Piccarelli. That's Blue's recommendation. Go with Blue's story.
So, it's my turn, but
Hold on.
Tom's going to take a drink first. Are we up to 5 viewers now? Holy crap.
Okay, go ahead.
So, before I even go into mine, if you were to pick up anything by Tom Piccarelli, and I'm going to be honest with you, you're having more of my pumpkin whiskey, aren't you?
Our pumpkin whiskey.
Our pumpkin.
I mean, first of all, I bought it.
That's
Second
true.
of all, I'm
That's-
donating it to the room, so yes, it's all right.
Our pumpkin. So, I got to tell you one thing. It's a lot better than the Walking Dead Kentucky bourbon that you bought from the room. That was like gasoline. Okay, so
I think I got that. All right,
Tom
go ahead.
Piccarelli is amazing, and I have not read enough of Tom Piccarelli, but Blue Gillian is absolutely right. The Choir of Ill Children is somehow Southern Gothic, grotesque, disturbing, and poetic all at the same time. It's just absolutely amazing. So here are my books. The very first one, the very first two actually, you'll notice are up on our screen as featured books. The first one is only up for pre-order right now, Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. Now, Malfi has been one of my favorite authors since the very beginning. And he's also a wonderful guy. Probably one of the most unpretentious, straight shooting, just great guys. Love hanging out with Ron. But with Ron, I'm always like, I'll close a book of his and be like, so I get done with Floating Staircase and be like, oh, this is his best novel. There's no way he's going to write anything better than this. Then I get finished with The Narrows and go, oh, there's no way he can write anything better. Then I get done with Bone White.
Bone White was
There's
brilliant.
no way he can write anything better than this. And then I get done with Come With Me. So Come With Me is just a wonderful story about a guy named Aaron Decker whose wife is killed in a random shooting, which sadly enough has become very common in our country
Yeah,
today.
jeez.
But what he ends up discovering is his wife has this secret life that she hid entirely from him, and this darkness that she hid from him as well. And suddenly I don't want to say it has Peter Straub like implications because they're different writers and they're wonderful in their different ways, but he finds out that his not only did his wife have this secret side that she'd been hiding from him, but that she had also been secretly on the hunt for a serial killer going all the way back to her senior year in high school. And it just is such a wonderful, wonderful novel.
That's a cool concept.
And not only that, It's told in first person and second person because it's first person from Aaron Decker's perspective, addressing his deceased wife. And that could be really tricky.
That's really tough to pull off.
And he pulled it off. He pulled it off. Like, that could get really annoying if he keeps referencing the wife's name and he strikes the perfect balance. And it's just, again, I would go out and pre-order that right now.
That's that kind of POV is really, really difficult to pull off. So if you read it and you enjoy the story, just know that there's a whole extra level of difficulty that goes into that.
So, The Children of Red Peak by Craig DeLuey. I would be remiss to not mention Craig DeLuey's other novel, which is so very important. Craig DeLuey's other novel that I've read is Our War. And it's not necessarily horror as a genre in so much as horrific. So Our War is the imagination that a combative president refuses to leave office when he's impeached, and the entire country descends into civil war.
I don't see how that can happen.
Yeah, of course not.
And what I gotta say, and this is not a review of Our War, but what I really loved about Our War is he does not ultimately come down on one side politically. He just shows us this is how horrible this would be. You know, but
and I will say, Craig DeLuey. Actually, I listened to one of his live readings. They do the monthly readings through the New York chapter of HWA, Horror Writers Association, and I think. Sorry if I get the details correct, but I remember listening to him read, and I think that was what it was, one of their live readings, and he was phenomenal. His writing is very captivating.
Yeah. So, The Children of Red Peak is about a story about these kids that are all caught up in this doomsday cult. It starts out as a Christian commune that's very loving and very community-based and very, like, not its original inception is not David Waco, Texas. Not David Koresh, Waco, Texas. It's very much a loving, family-oriented community that gets twisted and turned into a doomsday cult, and it deals with the kids who survive at the end, and how they're trying to process this as adults. And it's a wonderful novel because this could have very easily been a religion is stupid, Christianity is stupid, you're all dumb for believing in this. And it doesn't come off like that. What Craig DeLuey does in The Children of Red Peak is he really delves into the complexities that are involved in wanting to belong somewhere, and how a faith can very genuinely offer a place for people to belong, but then how that could be so easily manipulated. And also, too, not that he's denying the existence of God, but in The Children of Red Peak, he's like, well, what if it's not exactly God that you're worshiping? What happens then? And it was a really, really great novel. Very, very heartfelt.
Yeah, he read a sample, and that went straight to my to-be-read pile.
Yeah. So another one that I read that was just wonderful. For those of you that don't know, I write do we have another comment?
Oh, well, actually, we might hold off to this one. It's about horror anime.
And Chuck's got a horror anime segment later.
So we will.
Nice.
We'll probably hold on to that.
Okay, so I write a column for Cemetery Dance Publications called Revelations, and it basically chronicles my. What are you doing?
Just getting ready for the poke.
Oh, Lord. So it chronicles my journeys through the horror genre as I've discovered writers. And one of my biggest paths of discovery has been used bookstores. I just comb them.
It's his crack.
I will not share the story because if I do, Tom will poke me 20 minutes from now. Long story short, I used to only read 3 horror writers. I used to only read Stephen King, Peter Straub, Dean Koontz. Now, as wonderful as those are, that does not represent the depth of the horror genre. So I had an experience that said, go forth and find. I recently read a novel called Dark Journey by A.R. Moreland, and it's a wonderful novel. I'd never heard of it before. This novel is like on par with A Ghost Story by Peter Straub. It's this multi-generational novel about the small cursed town, and the kids that are grow up there, and how they're cursed by something that happened long ago, and how it has this
The sins of the father.
Yes, very much sins of the father, but then there's also a surprising spiritual side to it as well. And then A.R. Moreland turned out to be a mystery as well, because as I posted about it, and then for those that are in the know, Kathy Patasek, who is Charles Grant's widow, said, "Oh my gosh, she was this really wonderful writer who lived this tragic life, and there was this whole, her parents kidnapped her, her mom kidnapped her from her father and fled across the country." And I was like, holy cow. And I won't go into that because that would take away from the novel. But Dark Journey by A.R. Moreland. I
will say, so people who are watching don't realize, like, what the heck is he doing? I'm looking up information, so you may see us as we're going along.
Yeah.
I'm not ignoring Kevin. I'm actively.
That's
He
a
is.
lie.
I'm trying to find a name. I'm trying to look.
So
at
there's no picture of her. She was a recluse.
Recluse.
Recluse. She refused to type on computer. She typed everything on typewriter with carbon copies to make copies. But it's a wonderful novel. The Dark Journey, though, is not a novel that you can just read on the beach and be like, if you want to take your time and you just really want it, this is a lush, gothic, small town horror novel. It's really, really great. Really, really great. The next one I wanted to mention was The Writing Life by Jeff Strand. We all know Jeff. Jeff is
he's a kooky guy. He's fun.
Okay, so if you're a horror writer, you've read On Writing by Stephen King. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've read Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. Those are canonical books that you should read. Of course, the problem is you read those and nobody begrudges Stephen King's success and Ray Bradbury's success, but that's not standard. That's not what your average writer faces. What's really great about The Writing Life by Jeff Strand is it's by a guy who's been in the trenches and now he's writing full time, but he really shows you the warts and all, and it's very applicable to the rest of us.
Obviously, Stephen King knows what he's doing, but I will say, given that he's been successful for so long, some of his advice comes across as somebody who's a bit out of place with the people in the trenches.
Well, he's been fortunate. He's been blessed.
Yeah.
Nobody would begrudge him.
He was there. Yeah. No begrudging at all. He's successful. He's earned his success. But some of the stuff he does in terms of like committing time, stuff like that, I know from my personal experience and from other authors like me, it's like when you're working a day job and you have kids,
right.
You physically cannot do some of the things that are suggested of like how much time you put into the writing.
Right.
You just physically can't. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. So I'll highly recommend if you're a writer and you want a really accurate representation of writing from someone who's been there and done that, I would say The Writing Life by Jeff Strand. The last one that I'm going to do, and
my God, I thought that was your last one.
No. Okay.
If you want book recommendations and author recommendations, Kevin's your guy.
Possessed by Peter Laws. So I discovered Peter Laws a couple of years ago when I came across his nonfiction book called The Frighteners. It's a nonfiction book about our preoccupation, why it is we love macabre things. What drew me was by Reverend Peter Laws. I'm just like, that's great, and Possessed is a great novel because so he is an ordained minister that writes supernatural suspense thrillers, crime novels, trafficking in the horror genre. And what he's explicitly doing is in his novels, his character Matt Hunter is now one of my new favorite recurring characters. And Matt Hunter is a former priest or a former pastor who has fallen away from the faith. He's now an atheist, and he's a college professor who specifically deals with religious dogma and how it could possibly be hurtful. And he assists the local police with religious cases. Possessed obviously deals with possession. And again, for those of you that may not be of the Christian faith, this might not necessarily be very applicable to you. But what he does in Possessed is a really great examination of the difficulties and complexities with mental health. And when, it can be so easy. Like, I know this is going to sound shocking. My son is high functioning autistic. I've talked about this before. I'll never forget when I was working with autistic kids before I got married. And when I was working with autistic kids, and I had another fellow Christian who very seriously asked me, do you think autism is Satan? Is it demon possession? And this sounds ridiculous. Who would ever think that? But it's a lot more prevalent than you would think. And Possessed is a great supernatural thriller that really delves into that. How are we talking about things that, not to diminish the importance of the supernatural, the spiritual, but all these mental issues that go undiagnosed simply because we want a quick fix prayer. And it's really a really great novel. But the best part about Peter Laws's novels is he is content to leave you very undecided as to whether or not something supernatural actually happened. He toys with you a little bit, which is great. He doesn't explain everything away at the end of his novels. He leaves that little tidbit where you're like, wait, was that supernatural or not? Which really makes me wonder about Matt Hunter's future. But those are my book recommendations. Do you guys have any other book recommendations?
No, we're good. We're good.
All right. So I think we're ready for another break. So again, if you want to go take a break, I'm going to take a break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes.
Oh, Lord, that hurt. You right there, Chuck?
That was with I had my stuff.
You get a mini garbage can down here, Kevin.
This is true. I should get a garbage can shape of this. Are you on the phone?
Oh.
Do a advertisement for my books. All right, so folks who are still with us now, it's my turn to pitch my books. So my name is Kevin Lucia. I write what I would call quiet horror. It's a term that was coined by the late Charles Grant. And it's, which is not to say that I'll never write a slasher horror or write something more action-oriented. This is just kind of my go-to. My thought is always, I want to write something that's emotional, that comes from a character's conflicts or like this deep fears inside. I tend to write everything in a interconnected mythos, kind of my imagined Adirondack town, Clifton Heights, New York, which is kind of like your Castle Rock or Greentown. Those
Cabot Cove.
Yeah, those folks that are really horror fans, Gary Braunbeck's Cedar Hill, Charles Grant's Ox Run Station, that's kind of my sweet spot, is really dealing with that and dealing with the small town. And it's not so much that I feel like I can't write anything else. For example, I am working on a weird Western right now. I'm also possibly co-authoring a novel with another author that will not take place in Clifton Heights. But I just think that in a town, there's so many individuals there with their own stories, and to me, the possibilities are limitless. So if you just go to Amazon.com, type in Kevin Lucia, you will find all of my books. There's my advertisement for the night.
So, Plagiarized Memes wrote a really good horror anime is Angels of Death. Y'all should watch it sometime.
Angels of Death.
Let me see here.
Our anime horror guy is now going to write that down.
I'm putting it on the list. I'm taking note. I'm literally taking note. I've actually seen it. I've seen it listed.
You know what a lot of my kids were talking about just the other day, and it made me think of you.
My wife has a Crunchyroll subscription, which you probably have no idea what that means.
I know what Crunchyroll is.
Okay. So yes, we are fully into the anime thing. My wife is a bigger anime fan than I am.
So it was funny because my other kids were talking about this, and it made me think of you, in that a bunch of kids are like, "Oh, I just started watching Death Note, and I can't stop watching it."
It's so good.
And I'm like,
It's gonna get a mention in my segment, so I have it written down. It's so good. The concept is just rock solid. I actually have a Death Note notebook, and I'm not superstitious, but I still have refused to put anybody's name in it. It feels, I don't know, it feels awkward to actually put a name into it.
You've got your own Death Note.
I have a literal Death Note.
Mr. McDonough is pulling out
the peanut butter
whiskey. We've got 5 viewers again.
I just used my amazing strong arm muscles to open it, that's all.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Take a little whiff.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, you're worried you're gonna be tempted?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you like
I'm so tempted.
The pumpkin whiskey. It's so
really good,
right?
It's really good. I mentioned I had a surprise for you the next time I came in. That was a surprise.
Oh, besides you're almost death. Blown up in the car.
Yeah, it was so loud. My ears were ringing for a good 15-20 minutes afterwards.
Are we ready to go?
I think we are.
Okay, so now we're going to start talking about the horror movies we've watched recently, and what better way to begin with McDonough's Hammer of Truth. Unfortunately, we don't have the usual sound effects that we usually have for this, but this is where
Sprout
Tom McDonough offers us his unfiltered opinion of a horror movie he's watched, and we're going to see, will the Hammer of Truth fall tonight? Go ahead, sir.
Well, it is going to fall. It is going to fall on Devil's Gate, a 2017 movie directed by, God, I have bad eyes, Peter Apito. Now, no, it's just, is that correct?
That's
Apurlo.
That's
Peter
the
Apurlo.
aftershock talking, Chuck.
I know, thank you, Chuck. No, now, I don't actually have the names of the initial main characters. We do know that William Riker is in it.
And not only William Riker, but Iceman, too.
Who?
Iceman. The cop plays, he's the guy who plays Iceman.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, in the X-Men movies.
Now, I'm going to point out that this started off very strong, in my opinion. It takes place in a...
Oh, also, Peter Petrelli.
I have no idea who that is.
Jack from This Is Us. Peter Petrelli from Heroes.
I never watched those. We're not watching the same thing all the time. I have a life outside of you.
I can't speak to you anymore.
Fine.
Continue, please.
Fine, I'm going to divorce from you.
Oh no! There goes the friendship award for between you guys.
We better cut that apple in two, boy.
Go ahead, please.
All right, now the movie actually started off pretty strong. The setting, pretty good cinematography. The setting was in a very, when I say isolated farmhouse and barn and all that, it wasn't like in the woods. It was actually on the plains. So when you're looking, there's nothing for miles in each direction. So there were some like Texas Chainsaw vibes there going on, and essentially the cops, along with an FBI agent for some reason, go in on a wellness check because the local farmer's wife, whose place that is, no one's seen her for a while. They thought she was trying to leave and all that. Now, I thought it was going pretty strong in terms of, what is going on here. The farmer says one thing, and then they find the wife who says another thing. It fell off the rails pretty quickly because they had to squeeze in frickin' aliens. Alien abduction, aliens are gonna invade the world, that sort of thing. It just fell apart, okay? I understand.
Aliens every time.
We've had the argument before.
Freaking aliens.
Sci-fi,
Freaking aliens.
sci-fi getting into horror. It just, you had to make it work first. In fact, as I said, the setting would have been really good, more for like a demonic possession or a haunting or something like that. But sorry, Devil's Gate, you fell to two hammers and that's it.
Side note, I made it about halfway through Devil's Gate and then stopped watching right about the time the Tom side went off the rails.
Yeah, so I mean, would you agree with me? The opening, it was very good cinematography.
Very, 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 very good.
Very good setting.
So those of you guys that don't know what I'm talking
Side
about.
note: I started to watch it, but then I got abducted by aliens.
Got
And so I
gang probed, did you, son?
So I was
So,
I loved it.
sorry.
I loved that Jonathan Frakes, aka Will Riker, was the
Star Trek Next Generation.
kind of the grumpy, sheriff. I can't remember his name, but the guy who played Iceman in a couple of the X-Men
Holy crap,
movies.
we're at 6 people.
He was
Like
the
2
deputy.
people big.
I know, right? You're right. Probably around the time that you said that it went off the rails is when I never finished it. So, do you have any horror movies? You don't really have many. Do
No,
you?
I'm listening to Tom's majestic
Okay,
voice.
so you've got a couple other horror movies. So once again, I talk too much, so we let Tom go first. Is that another comment, or am I just hallucinating?
Oh no,
someone
Plagiarized
agreed.
Memes has 2 recommendations to add to the anime list, I guess.
Awesome. We'll save that for your anime section.
Oh.
So, Tom, go ahead before I start babbling off.
Anime is on the after
All right.
hours part of the show.
Oh, great.
Tentacles. Okay, go ahead.
All right, I got a few. I actually have started off Nobody Sleeps in the Woods tonight. 2020 Polish horror movie directed by Bartosz Kowalski.
Poland.
Exactly, Chuck's got to represent. Now, as I understand it, I think it's that Poland has not had much foray into the horror genre. So,
Oh, Poland has got some really deep forays into the horror genre.
okay, completely.
Well, I will say this: a lot of modern indie horror games are coming out of Eastern Europe.
Oh, okay.
So there's some deep horror roots in Poland.
All right, well, this is from Netflix, and it starts off, it's a summer camp for kids who are being forced to give up their electronics. Their parents actually send them there because they are way too much into internet, into their electronics. And I hate to say it, I'm starting to think, well, maybe the parents had a point here. They were too much into their Twitter live stream or whatever else they're doing. I have no idea. Well, anyways, it focuses on a small group of kids who go out with a counselor, to go camping, to just get away from it all. And it's kind of funny because I thought they were setting off as a standard slasher with you have the jockey type kid, the whorish girl, the poor nerdy chubby loser, the guy who's very sarcastic, and then the loner girl. And I thought there was some actual potential here, because now and then they were like making them like, okay, they're actually kids. Like the girl who sleeps around has a heart and is nice to people. The sarcastic kid is secretly gay and he's terrified about his father finding out. Stuff like that. However, one problem I think that they had with this is they crammed way too much into this. They end up being attacked by these deformed twin brothers who were deformed by alien black goo.
Aliens
course.
again. First was aliens.
They're indestructible.
Freaking aliens.
Extremely dumb decisions by the characters.
You couldn't stop with Indiana Jones. You had to ruin other movies.
Yeah, and the loner girl turns out to be the sole survivor. But it's her fault that some of the characters die. Like, we have to go back and rescue him. I don't want to. We have to go back and rescue him. Fine, then the guy gets killed because you wanted to go back and rescue him. So that was Nobody Sleeps in the Wood. I think there's some potential. I think that in time, maybe Poland will get up there with Korea in terms of cranking out some quality horror. Now on Netflix, The Silence, 2019 movie directed by John Leonetti.
Based on the novel by Tim Levin.
Yeah, I was very surprised that you told me that this novel came out before A Quiet Place did.
Yes, it did. Yes,
So that's actually questionable. Starring Stanley Tucci, Miranda
gotta
Otto, John
love
Corbett.
Stanley Tucci.
Gotta love the Tooch. Now, its cave monsters were released, and they started hunting people by sound, hunting anything moving. So, of course, the first time I'm watching this, I'm thinking, okay, is this just a rip-off of The Quiet Place? Which, spoiler, that was, well, this case, those were aliens, and these are cave monsters. A family looking to escape. The daughter is deaf, so there's another, wow, okay, similarity to Quiet Place.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really bad. I mean, John Corbett was only in for a little bit, to be honest. And you did have this family that had to make decisions, such as the dog barking in the car. The father had to make that final choice to open the car and let the dog out, which got it killed. The grandmother suffering from lung cancer, whose coughing was going to attract these things. She actually sacrificed herself to save her granddaughters being kidnapped by this religious cult. That was actually a nice little part they put in there. A religious cult where they cut out their tongues so they wouldn't make noise. But, this was God's punishment. We must take your daughter because she is fertile and we will breed her. It was a lot of crazy stuff. I think it's a good watch. In the end, they made their way north because the creatures don't like north. But the creatures were also laying their eggs in any animals or people that they killed. So, maybe that opened up the door for more.
I will say, I haven't seen the movie, but I did read the book, and the book has one of my favorite opening chapters of any book ever.
Tim Levin is amazing.
Tim Levin's amazing. So, and maybe this is how the movie opens, but basically it's one of those really cheesy Discovery Channel specials where, like, we found a secret cave, and
That's exactly what they did.
An annoying host, and then you get to watch all this annoying, like, I love the old days of Discovery Channel where you actually learn things, and now they just have these annoying hosts doing stuff, and it's like, no, we're just going to kill all these annoying hosts on Discovery Channel. I'm like, that's brilliant.
I mean, it wasn't an annoying host. It was just a bunch of cave explorers who were like, we found this empty cave, and they were recording. All of a sudden, we all got killed. And finally, the Block Island Sound, a 2020 movie directed by Kevin and Matthew McManus, filmed on Block Island, Rhode Island. It's actually an island between Long Island and Massachusetts, near Cape Cod. I guess you only get there by ferry. I'm not too sure about plane. In this case, you have a father-son fisherman group affected by something in the water, at least when they go out fishing. First the father, then the son, and it gets into issues of family division. The father dies, and the son is definitely being noticeably affected by something. The two daughters come up, and there's a big family division. The son is just getting worse and worse. It had very good atmosphere. I love the beach horror thing, for lack of a better. It's not beach horror. It's more like coastal town horror. I guess that's what we're looking for. I hate to say it, it got into science fiction because it heavily looted.
Aliens!
Aliens.
Freaking aliens again!
It got a little confusing at first because at the end, if you were hoping for, like, here's monsters, here's death and destruction, you're not going to get that.
No.
But they were talking about one of the aunts, one of the sisters actually, talking to her daughter of how she would, her group would take fish out of the ocean to study and hopefully to improve the environment, but those fish would die. So it kind of alluded to the fact that the aliens were taking humans to study, and sometimes they would die. Does the Black Island sound good? Yeah, I think it was good. Not very, it's not a happy ending movie, to be honest, but it was good. So those are my reviews.
So I'm going to, do you have something to say?
I was going to say we should probably do a... So I was going to say we have error. Error. YouTube is not receiving enough video.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Just keep
Okay.
it now.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Chuck's beautiful face.
No, I think it would be. It would be an interesting discussion to talk about what is it about aliens that ruins movies. Because obviously you're not against aliens. I mean, the movie Alien is brilliant. I think you both agree.
Yeah.
What is it about aliens that, like, turns people off of Indiana Jones when they bring in aliens into Indy 4.
So I'm going to jump right off of Tom because Block Island Sound is actually one of my one of my viewings as well. So here's the thing about aliens in horror. This falls in that area that like him or love him. Yes, he had racist tendencies. We could spend the next 3 hours debating that and never get to a clear answer.
Who are you talking about?
Lovecraft.
Okay, I thought you were talking about me.
No. Lovecraft really not pioneered that, but he really brought that to the fore. That his work was horror. It was not science fiction. It was not golden age science fiction. But these were aliens. They were aliens from a different dimension. They were aliens that considered us to be nothing more than playthings. So there is a difference between a sci-fi movie where aliens show up in a spaceship, and even if they're attacking Earth, like in
Independence Day.
Right, it's exactly what I was thinking. Even if they're attacking Earth in Independence Day, those aliens are ultimately defeatable. Because apparently Windows 95 is compatible with alien technology, as Jeff Goldblum showed
Good
us.
morning, Dave.
As he goes 3 taps, and, oh, I'm in. That's like to me, it's still the worst. I'm sitting there, I'm really enjoying Independence Day. This is a great movie. And then somehow Jeff Goldblum goes 3 keystrokes. Oh, I'm in. Windows 95, which none of us can use because it sucks. Apparently compatible with alien technology. Anyway, in those movies, the aliens are ultimately defeatable. But in cosmic horror, aliens are beings that pretty much find us irrelevant. That's where the horror lies.
Yeah.
You are an ant. In the existential scope of things, you are nothing to me. So that's where Block Island Sound, yes, it's highly implied that these are alien life forms, or at least a life form that's not human or that's foreign to us. But to me, that's not really ever a sci-fi movie because it delves into that cosmic horror, especially because the main character, one of the main characters in Block Sound, is a marine biologist. And she's trying to explain to I can't remember. It's been a while since I watched it.
I just told them this. You're trying to repeat what I just
Did
said.
I talk about how she was?
She was telling her daughter how they had to take some fish out. Of
Right.
their
Yeah.
environment
Sorry.
To
Sorry.
study and hopefully
And that's
improve it, but those fish will die.
Did you talk about that? How that was the way the movie ended?
Yes.
That's the narration. So, like in Block Island Sound, we are little more than test subjects, and that's it. So, to me, that's where the dividing line between aliens as sci-fi and aliens as horror begins. Where in Independence Day, aliens, we can fight them with our guns, we can fight them with our
germs.
our germs, we can fight them with our jets and Windows 95, apparently.
And Bill Pullman, the best president
That's
ever.
right. We will not go gentle into that good night. But whereas in cosmic horror, we're nothing. So I like.
Ideas?
What's that?
No, I was gonna say I was gonna ask Tom.
No, why don't we move on? Because I'm sure Kevin wants to go now.
Yeah, so Block Island Sound, that was also one of my picks, so and I really enjoyed that as well. It's on Netflix.
Is that my segment he just jumped on?
No, it was just transition.
No, I was gonna say I think aliens. I think the reason people find that kind of jarring, that idea, why it kind of wrecks the movie, is one, they often end up being.
Who thinks that aliens wrecks the movie?
They can't wreck the movie. Like the classic example is Indiana Jones, the Indy 4.
Yeah, that was complete
because you're watching
crap.
a movie and it switches. I think one is it's the Deus Ex Machina effect, but I think the other one is it's kind of jarring when you're it's jarring to the genre. When you're watching something supernatural, which is what a lot of the horror movies are, and then you go to something, I have a scientific explanation, you lose that supernatural intrigue.
Well, but the problem there, though, is you're talking about two completely different subgenres between supernatural horror and cosmic horror.
Right, but I think that's why a lot of movies, the aliens...
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The reason why the aliens suck in Indiana Jones 4 is because Indiana Jones 4 sucks.
Right. Right.
It sucks. It just
They're coming out
sucks.
with
But there was
number
also
5.
But who could complain about the aliens and aliens? I mean,
right,
it's the
right.
greatest
But
movie in the
but that's
world.
why aliens themselves don't ruin a movie. But when they're embraced into the movie and they're part of it, you're like, I can go with this. But I think when they come in as like an explanation,
It's aliens.
it wrecks the genre. And it pulls you out of fantasy. Usually, it's either takes you out of fantasy into science fiction, or it takes you out of supernatural into science fiction.
Well, it's a matter of
Kinda wrecks
writing.
it.
It's a matter of writing.
Yeah.
So my two, just my horror picks off of Shudder would first be The Boys from County Hell on Shudder. It's a nice Irish horror vampire, and I think there's a little bit of irony there because they all hang out at a bar called the Stoker, and they're all really annoyed that Stoker wrote this novel about Dracula when really there's a older Irish myth about an Irish vampire. It's a really good movie, but basically they accidentally unearth the Irish vampire. At first I thought it was going to be a little goofy.
That wasn't the pint he was looking for.
Yeah, and it was funny as it was goofy, but it ends up becoming a pretty heartfelt, vampire movie. Where the vampire was a little bit, it was unique, and it was very, very different. So The Boys from County Hell. And the next one I had was The Power, also on Shudder. It's about a nurse who has to work in a hospital during World War II when they're having the rolling blackouts, and in England, and obviously when the lights go out, the demons come out and play, and it centers around a child who. The ghost of a child who was abused there and mistreated, and she ends up possessing this nurse to kind of exact her revenge. And there's a nice little twist in that, and that's really enjoyable as well. And those were my two basic.
Both on Shudder?
Yeah, what was that? Both are on Shudder. Do we need to take a break, or do we want to rock it right into my Creep Show review?
Let's rock it.
Rock it.
All right. So those you guys. If you have not watched Creep Show yet on Shudder, highly recommend it. Season 1 was just under, and we're in the middle of season 2. Creep Show on Shudder offers the perfect blend between horror humor and serious horror. And so far, season 2 has pretty much been a winner. And if you're not familiar with Creep Show, what they offer is 2 short horror tales per episode. Like it's part of the, double issue Creep Show comic book. Episode 1 is Model Kid in Public Television of the Dead. Model Kid's a great one because it's basically about this, it's a little cliche about the horror kid who loves horror, and his stepfather is a proto-barbarian jerk who just thinks his kid should play sports and things like that. But it is a really nice twist when the kid who loves his horror, and he loves his horror models, which I have become actually very fascinated with. I've got currently Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and the Grim Reaper, and the Phantom of the Opera. Here Chuck is going to show you one of my Wolfman. Now this Wolfman is actually based, supposedly modeled on Lon Chaney himself. So I've gotten kind of into
Lon Chaney Jr.
Lon Chaney Jr. Yes. So Model Kid's a great episode because he ends up finding this mysterious ad for a model that can basically it's basically like a voodoo doll. So I could order this model kit and then have it be, I'll make it like my stepfather and have him like cut it.
So they took that from the Creep Show movie.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really, really good. The second half, one of their Public Television of the Dead. So imagine WSKG. And you've got all these different shows going on at once.
That's local broadcast.
Yeah,
WSKG.
Public TV.
PBS.
Yeah, PBS. And imagine one of the shows is a Bob Ross knockoff. We're going to pay
I like where this is going.
Happy. But he's also a Vietnam vet.
Which Bob Ross was.
So, yeah. And let's imagine the other show is one of those, lost treasures like pawn thrift. And let's imagine the main character, most recent guest, is being played by Ted Raimi.
Oh.
And let's imagine that the book, the issue, the object on this episode of Pawn Shop is this strange book that's bound in human leather with a face on it, and it may or may not be the Necromonicon. And then the host ends up reading and now suddenly you have the Army of the Evil Dead on a public television network studio. And the only one that
Bravo to the person who put these concepts together.
the only one that can
I don't know who the writer is, but bravo.
The only one that can save them is the Bob Ross painter who also served in Vietnam.
It won't stop the zombies from asking for donations.
And it's great. This is a straight
Send flesh or a check.
Just the fact that Ted Raimi is in it, because he was also in the Bruce Campbell series, Ash versus the Evil Dead. It's just a send up of the Evil Dead. What happens if the Necromonicon?
To who wrote this?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. The next one that was really great was The Right Stuff in Sibling Rivalry. So The Right Stuff is a great aliens.
Well, is it about the movie The Right Stuff? The
Two astronauts are in space, and they end up making that coveted first contact.
Mm-hmm.
But the one astronaut is eternally laboring in his father's shadow, and always comparing himself to his father. He'll never measure up. And unfortunately,
his father was Bob Ross.
Unfortunately, he makes some very questionable decisions that ends up dooming the human race, and aliens are involved.
But Daddy loves me now.
The next one, Sibling Rivalry, is a good example of creepshow humor horror, where a sister is convinced that her brother is trying to kill her. And he is.
Oh.
Because she doesn't realize that her best friend, her girlfriend, 2 nights ago, turned her into a vampire. And, of course, he's trying to kill her because she's already killed her parents.
Oh.
And she's ready to go on a bloody rampage. But the siblings end up working it out because blood is thicker than water. So now, the most recent episode I've watched, we're still halfway through the season, is Pipe Screams and Within the Walls of Madness. Pipe Screams is, again, another great example of horror humor about this slum apartment and how basically this poor plumber gets hired to work there, and the lady is a slumlord. But it turns out that the sludge and the hair and all the stuff that clogs up the pipes, well, it's alive. And it eats people. But also, too, this slumlord has been taking advantage of everybody in the apartment. So they all just decide the best way to keep this monster happy is to feed them the slumlord. So it's a lot of fun. Now, aliens.
Dear God.
Within the Walls of Madness is a beautiful work of cosmic horror. Absolutely wonderful. Very much you can see the influence of At the Mountains of Madness, where they discover this artifact in this Arctic circle that can summon the old ones to come and destroy everyone. And it's just a wonderful work of a cosmic horror. And kudos to casting the lead scientist, who's also crazy, Denise Crosby.
Oh.
Who we used to know as
Tasha Yar. Wow.
And now she's a crazy scientist who's decided life would be better if the old ones was summoned. So that rounded out. I'm only halfway. I got to be honest. The only one I haven't liked so far.
Stay with us, folks. Kevin's going into the late hours of the night. He's going to give us a play-by-play.
No. There's only one that I haven't liked so far. But for the most part, Creepshow Season 2, it's a winner. So that's all I have for the movies. Do you guys have any more?
Nope.
All right. So we're going to take ourselves another 10-minute break.
Another break. We should just say break because we're never 10 minutes.
That's right. We're taking a break. We'll be back. Any more comments or no?
No.
Break time?
No comments.
No, I was
break
on
time.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, we have for comments. No, just the anime recommendations.
Okay, cool.
We're coming to anime soon.
We are.
No jumping out on Chuck's anime either. Let me tell you about anime.
I don't know anything about anime.
Wasn't Voltron anime?
Yes.
Oh, so we actually knew anime before anime became popular. Voltron.
Thundercats might as well have been anime too.
I think so. I don't like Snarf.
Well, Star was a musical.
Snarf, can you shut the hell up for a minute?
Put this up in the horror cave.
Mother's Day gift.
We should bring something from the horror cave random into display. Let's see, Mario.
We should have done this for your Kong versus Godzilla. It used to be your kid's favorite toy.
Okay, here we go. I got my random objects.
Oh no.
Okay. So, I'm your filler entertainment. So we're gonna do random objects from the horror cave, Kevin's horror cave. So I will do this as a future segment. I will be your eyes and ears and tongue for the horror cave. Random. We're gonna wander about and pick some things that interest me. So we have a Mario in the horror cave. It's not just horror stuff; it's also geeky stuff. So we've got a Mario here. I don't know what power this is. So I played plenty of Mario, but I'm not recognizing power. But we've got a cast attached to Old Smoky Mango Habanero whiskey bottle. And we've got a lovely collection of stickers here of various horror figures. So it's good. There we go. So I see an Edgar Allan Poe in there. All right, so yeah, if you're not familiar with the horror cave, go back and watch some old segments. But there is a lot of stuff here. Kevin, how many books do you estimate are in this room?
How many books are in this room?
How many books?
I really can't even give you that number. Honestly.
Yeah. We're gonna do a rough estimate here. So there's probably about 30 books in this section here. We've got, there's a couple hundred horror books, 200 to 300 horror books over on this wall here. I want to say getting close to 300 when we have the shelf here, and then there's an entire wall of books over there. There's, we'll go 500 to 600 horror books in here. Well, 500 to 600 books, most of them horror. So, yeah, that gives you an idea of how extensive it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how many books are in here.
Yeah, a lot of posters, a lot of superhero posters. I'm giving a tour of the various objects in the horror cave.
Oh,
Random
Kevin's
objects.
cast.
Yes, Kevin's cast.
Yes, I watched many horror movies during my convalescence last summer.
It's true. He had to tell us all about it constantly, even though we didn't want him to.
Story of my life.
I know, you talk, we don't listen.
What do we got next?
We got another object from the horror cave.
Oh,
This is terrifying.
Oh,
The little red caboose.
So a lot of the stuff in the horror cave is not just horror, but for example, that was one of my kids' favorite books when they were little, so we read it all the time. Why don't we do?
There are probably 2,000 artifacts in this room.
You know what I think it's time for?
We do classic movies or anime?
I think it's time for anime.
Anime.
Especially because we have stuff. All right, so we're back. And it's awesome too because we've had several comments about anime horror.
Yep.
So Chuck is going to dive into anime horror now.
So I had some recommendations and a conversation topic.
Okay.
So, looking into anime horror, I would say it's not it's not necessarily the most popular category of anime. If you go to like Crunchyroll or Hulu and look at any channel, they have a lot of anime. There's not a lot of horror, but there's a lot of horror adjacent entertainment that's out there. I'm gonna throw out a few names. First one comes from Castlevania. It comes from Netflix. That's Castlevania. I'm going to ignore the debate on whether anime can come from a country that's not Japan, because that's in anime that's a big debate. If it looks like anime but it doesn't come from Japan, is it really anime? If you like anime, you probably like the other countries' anime style stuff as well.
Baseball didn't really come from the U.S. to start off as cricket in England.
Right.
If it's good, it's good.
If it's good, it's good. And we're going to go with Castlevania, which is obviously based on the old video game series.
Oh, I played that a lot.
It's really well done. If you want something that's more of a traditional story, a lot of people may not be into anime. I think this is a good one to watch for someone who's not necessarily familiar with anime, because if you're from the outside of anime entertainment, it seems kind of weird. There's a lot of quirkiness that goes into it. This is more of a Western story, which again, people who like anime will be like, it's not anime. It's a good story. Lots of red coloring goes onto the page. Lots of people get devoured by the demons and the monsters that are in there. But there's a really interesting take on the whole Dracula story and the bitterness that's there, losing his beloved, the revenge that takes place on the local population, and the fight back against Dracula. It gets a little bit political, not in terms of like governmental policies, but more in terms of the different factions having views and a lot of opinions on what should happen with humanity. So I've seen the first 2 seasons, but there is a 3rd season that's out there now. I haven't watched it yet, but I do recommend Castlevania. Really well done, wonderfully animated. If you want to go with something that is coming out of Japan, my pronunciation I don't know. I'm going to try my best. Yamishibai. Yamishibai. I will put up letter. I'll put it on Facebook if nothing else. I'll spell it out there. Yamishibai. Yamishibai. I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese. Best comparison I can give to this is actually creepypasta. This is interesting.
Ooh.
This is on Crunchyroll. All the episodes are 4 minutes, and that includes the opening song, opening credits, and then the closing credits. So they're really only like 2 to 3 minutes long. And what this is like classic stories you would tell around a campfire, but they're all out of Japan. And so it does feel like those stories that kids will tell each other to spook each other as they're trying to go to sleep. The animation is not brilliant in this. It's a lot of it's very static, a lot of poorly animated stuff. It's all about the story. This is the kind of stuff you tell to creep people out late at night in a tent. But it is fun. So if you read creepypasta online, you've got a pretty good idea what this is. This is creepypasta coming out of Japan. Yamishibai. Shiki would be my 3rd one I'm going to recommend. I've only started this. I'm a few episodes in, but I've seen, I think, every single reviewer I've read so far has compared this to Salem's Lot by Stephen King. This is, it's starting out really, really strong. Some strong characters. It has that Stephen King touch where it's this remote town. People are very quirky with their own little individual traits. It has that very strong small town feel where everyone kind of knows one another, and it just all hits the fan. It doesn't just explode onto the scene, but it's more like weird things start happening. People are trying to figure out what's going on, and it's just going deeper and deeper into the pit. So I'm intrigued. I'm going to be finishing this one. I'm only 3 episodes in, and it's just getting better and better. So Shiki, bringing some vampire stories that are in there. It does have that Salem's Lot feel. One other one I'm going to throw out there, I have not watched it yet, but I'm seeing a lot of recommendations on it. It's called Another. I watched the trailer for it. It looks interesting. I'm going to be looking at this one as well. If you can beat me to it, go right ahead. So those would be my recommendations: Castlevania, Yamishibai, Shiki, and Another. I did see some recommendations here coming out of the chat. Actually, yes, I see Junjito. I'm going to get right back to that. But I see some recommendations from Plagiarized Memes, Angels of Death, and Ghost Stories. I have seen both of them advertised to check out. I want to look at those. Oh, I will mention Shiki. I had to find this on YouTube. If you're looking for it online, I had trouble. I don't like recommending stuff that's on YouTube because obviously no one's getting paid for that. Other than Google's getting paid by you watching YouTube. But I checked all the different streaming services. I could not find it. There is an English dub. I just can't find it. Find what you can at what's out there. But the other ones are available on like Crunchyroll or on Netflix. And there's one other one that's mentioned, Junji Ito. Have you guys ever seen any of the books by Junji Ito?
No.
I know the name.
The name?
I know the name.
Brilliant horror illustrator. Extremely detailed. It's all about the static images, and it is completely unsettling. It gets into very deep body horror. I mean, the guy will draw every hair follicle and every crack in the scab to show how graphic this is, and just warping the human body and what can possibly go wrong. I have seen there is a Junji Ito anime. I'm suspicious on how that will turn out, just because the books by Junji Ito are extremely detailed. There are, I mean, you're probably figuring each page probably took 16 hours to draw. I don't know how you can do that in an animation, which is meant to be much faster. So we will see there is a Junji Ito anime. Maybe it's brilliant, but I'm kind of suspicious on how you can turn something that's like the Michelangelo of horror illustration into an anime. But yeah, that's out there as well. And it's mentioned here, Ghost Stories has the greatest English dub to exist. So a couple recommendations on Ghost Stories. So yeah. So those are recommendations, but the topic I want to bring up and bring you guys into this, and that is animation limited on what it can do with horror? What I mean by that is it's hard to make something horrific. I've watched some commentary on this, and I have to at least partially agree. Horror is hard to pull off in anime because it's illustrated. You can watch Looney Tunes, for example, and in reality, the stuff that happens to them would be horrific, but it's comical because it's not real. And I think a lot of that carries over to animation in general. You can put a lot of blood in the illustration, but it still feels just like red paint. I have found, I don't know if I have my shirt here. Yes, I do. It is possible to have wonderful horrific sound effects in animation, and also I think it's good to have good story ideas. Some of my favorite stories are very dark, not necessarily horror, but the concept is brilliant from a horror standpoint. You've got Death Note. Kevin, you mentioned that earlier tonight. Some students talking about that. Death Note has one of the greatest concepts I've ever heard, which is a demon, so to speak, a reaper, so to speak, somebody that comes to collect the dead, Grim Reaper sort, is bored and puts out a notebook on Earth so that whoever writes a name in there, that person dies, and you can actually write how they will die. And it's a wonderful detective story of, a cat and mouse story of trying to catch the killer, but also catch the detective. The murderer wants to find the name of the detective to stop them, but the detective wants to prove this person's the murderer. It's a brilliant story, but in reality, that kind of concept is horrifying. And one of my favorite things to bring up in memes is, we have it here in my shirt. I brought this along. This is my ugly sweater. We have the Chimera from Full Metal Alchemist, which is not a horror story. But if you're an anime fan, you probably have had that gut punch experience of that scene with the daughter and the dog being forced into one and then murdered. So a lot of people are very opposed to children being killed in movies, and people are opposed to the dog dying in movies. This is brought together in one beautiful bouquet, and we'll just take care of it in one fell swoop. So I think animation is great for that concept, and I think you can do all the sound effects. But I'm putting the question to you guys: is it hard to pull off horror and horrify people with something that is essentially a cartoon?
A little bit harder, I would think. However, it depends on how well they do the story. Like, Soul Station, Train to Busan, I think that would count as anime. It might be Korean, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
That worked pretty well, I'd say. Yeah, if it was live action, it would be a lot scarier. So it just depends on how well that the creators go. I mean, it's on them.
Yep.
I'm going to go with a very non-answer answer.
Oh, crying out loud.
Yeah, I think something like that really is highly dependent on your viewer/reader and where they are. Like, I can remember the very first time I stumbled across some old issues of the EC horror comics, and they were illustrated, and they were comics. But to me, they were pretty darn disturbing. They were pretty, like, the images it left me with. I think it really, really depends. You know, it really depends. Like, last year, Creepshow did a animated Halloween special, and the first one was actually narrated by Keither Sullivan, which was pretty cool. And both of them were animated, but they were pretty disturbing in their own way. So I think it's really, that's one of those things that really depends on the delivery, the story, and also the people who are watching it.
Yep. And I would say, bringing something similar, again, that illustrations, not from comics, but actually from cards. I remember when I was a kid, I bought packs. They had, like, there's dinosaurs on the cover, dinosaurs attacking Earth, and I thought this would be kind of cool. So I bought these little packs of cards, and I opened it up, and that was one of my welcomings into horror, and that what the cards essentially were a lot of illustrations of dinosaurs coming back and eating people. And, you know, with Jurassic Park, it's, oh, this is kind of fun, this is adventurous, it's suspenseful. This was like, oh no, here's a person who's, like, being torn apart, and there's the long strand of intestines.
Oh.
I opened one pack, and I'm like, I don't know how my mom will react if she sees me bringing home a bunch of these. So I had the one pack. I actually remember going back to the little gas station. I'm like, I'm going to turn back these unopened packs and get some gum instead. It was horrific. So I think in animation or illustration, in this case, it can horrify. I think you have to go a bit excessive. You have to go really, really out there. Whereas with a movie, you can have a little bit of, you know, breaking the skin. You have to kind of go all out and just be almost ridiculous with it to have some sort of visceral effect. I think it also has a very limited shelf life. So I do think it's harder to have some sort of horrific aspect in terms of, like, body horror, for example. I think body horror is hard to pull off consistently. Junji Ito does it because the illustration is so profound. But I think that's the artistry that's there, not necessarily like, oh, they lost an arm. That's easier to be grotesque with a real person, you know,
Right.
3D illustration, 3D animation, stuff like that. So when I will say, my recommendations for horror, they don't scare me. When I watch anime horror, I'm not terrified the same way I am with, like, a really good animated video game. But that has more to do with, this is your choice. If you screw up, you die. You get punished. That's where the suspense comes from, the horror. You know, that the increased heart rate is, I don't want to make a mistake. And then if you have a really good movie or good book, you're tied into the character. I don't think anime has the same effect, but the stories can be tons of fun.
Right.
And in terms of Yamshibai, which is one of my recommendations, it's not really a story. It's more like, this is a really cool cultural jump. This feels like I'm the American sitting at the campfire with a bunch of Japanese students, and I'm hearing a story that I won't hear in the American culture. This is a really cool social experiment.
Very cool.
So there's my recommendations for anime horror and a little bit of a discussion.
Do you guys need a break?
What do you think?
I'm good.
All right. So here's what I want to do. Again, this is our very first time live.
Yep.
So a lot of this, I am going to take our Chucky's Legacy in Child's Play. We're going to put that off to a different show. Here's how we're going to end. I'm going to share with you my recent crazy 80s horror movies that I've watched on Shudder. Again, pinging on the how we started the night talking about low budget horror in the 80s versus low budget horror now. And then we will close with some classic horror films that Tom and I have watched. So, crazy 80s horror. Now, again, I'm going to say this. If you're a horror fan and you haven't gotten Shudder yet, what's wrong with you? I've actually been super impressed with...
Stop being poor.
Oh,
come on now. It's like $5.99 a month.
No, it's
sell your plasma. Kevin does.
It's true.
Cancel Netflix.
It's getting that way.
Yeah.
Shudder has got an amazing variety of films. And one of the things I'm really let me clarify. In the 80s, I didn't watch any horror. Grew up in a Baptist household. Not terribly strict, but certainly non-horror. And also, too, I grew up in an 80s household where we got 3 channels. Lived out in the country. There was no video store back then. I didn't really encounter a lot of those movies until later. But Shudder so far has proven a treasure trove of all sorts of horror. Now, these are not in depth.
I just want to say that 2 hours later, my mustache still smells like cinnamon.
My wife will like to kiss you tonight.
It's 80s. 80s movies. A little bit of aftershock. Hold on.
I don't think I can do anymore.
It's like 99% high fructose.
It's like liquid Fireball.
Pretty much, yeah.
We're definitely doing Goldschlager next time.
It's like that meme. Listen, unless you're alcoholic.
It's reminding me that time when I was 24, I was going to Broome Community College, and I kissed that girl I shouldn't have. That's what happened.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that.
All right.
Someone's talking to you Monday about that.
Like my wife watches these anyway. Okay. So, these are not in depth. These are not analytical. Not intelligent at all. So those are my reasons for recommending these movies.
If you're here for intelligent conversations, we're
Buddy,
only
you're in the wrong spot.
Wrong place. So, these are my horror recommendation, crazy 80s movies on Shudder, and I've got cute little blurbs to go with them.
They're adorable.
The first one is Mausoleum. What can I say about Mausoleum? Demon boobs. Literally. She turns into a demon, but her boobs turn into demons as well.
Oh, individual demons?
Little demons, little demon boobs. So Mausoleum is a story about some ancient family curse where if some kid wanders into a mausoleum and unearths this demon thing, she's going to eventually be possessed by a demon too.
So when it's colder out, do they get more violent?
So inevitably she wanders into the mausoleum, she's exposed to this demon, and then when she's of age, she starts slowly turning into a demon. And at one point, she's canoodling with her husband, and she turns into a demon, and her demon breasts actually rip his chest out and kill him. So Mausoleum on Shudder.
Breasts equal death.
Demon boobs. The second one is
3 now.
Humanoids from the Deep. Getting all Innsmouth with it. Not getting jiggy with it. So Humanoids from the Deep is actually a really good
If you got that reference, you're old.
Yeah. So Humanoids from the Deep is actually a fun film. Basically, human experimentation gone wrong. Gone wrong.
You know,
and these mutated fish people start attacking the small town. And basically they're like, we need us some human women. You know, so that really is what the movie devolves into, is these human fish people attacking and raping the women. And
so it's like Spring Break.
Kind of. And then the movie ends with one of the girls giving birth to, and that's how the movie ends.
To a minnow.
No, this like squealing, squalling, and it bursts
There
out
may be
of
some
her
spoiler alerts
belly.
in this.
Yeah, so Humanoids from the Deep. Mortuary. Over the top, Bill Paxton, bad guy. Now, I have been very surprised how many 80s horror films have Bill Paxton in it. I'm convinced we should start a horror movie drinking game where whenever Bill Paxton is in a movie in any capacity and it's a horror movie, you take a shot. And then if he says, game over, man, you just chug a beer.
We don't have enough aftershock for that.
Oh, my God.
So Mortuary is actually a good film, and Bill Paxton is over the top. Basically, there's a mortuary, and this guy is going around killing people and embalming them, and it turns out to be Bill Paxton. He's the mortuary's son, and he's killing people, and it's just, holy crap, what's going on in this movie? And there's a twist ending. I've decided also, too, that 80s horror is the the pinnacle of the twist ending. So more
I
twist.
thought that was M. Night Shyamalan.
No. Hellmaster, or AKA John Saxon, has to pay the mortgage. So John Saxon of Enter the Dragon, of Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm not even sure what he's doing in this movie. He's like some wacky professor who's discovered some drug serum that elevates people to like some mutant level. All he does throughout the whole movie is like grin with these bloody teeth and like spout this philosophical, like, I don't even know what, like garbage. It's basically he's got a bunch of cultist students that he experimented on, and they're now all ravaging a college. So Hellmaster. The next one is One Dark Night. Psychic zombies on roller skates, and Adam West plays a concerned husband, and also Jen Tilly's older sister Meg. So one Dark Night. It's actually not a bad film. It's about this two side plots. The one plot is a bunch of mean girls before we actually have mean girls. They're gonna make this one girl, Meg Tilly, spend the night in a mausoleum as like initiation, and they're of course gonna hide there and scare her the whole night. Unbeknownst to them, a psychic serial killer recently died and has now been interred in the mausoleum, and he's animating all the corpses and bringing them to life. And the effect, the effect is great because they don't bother actually having people dressed up as corpses. They just have mannequins apparently on roller skates and just have them, psychically animated down the hallways. And the flip side is the daughter of this dead psychic is now coming to terms with her father's real life, and her husband is Adam West of Batman fame. And Adam West spends the whole movie with a very serious look on his face, playing a very concerned husband. Don't Panic, a.k.a. 19-year-old in dinosaur pajamas accidentally summons demon through an Ouija board.
As you do.
As you do. So in Don't Panic, this kid turns 18 or 19, I can't remember which, and then maybe the beer talking, and his friends to say, "Hey, you're 19, let's do a Ouija board." And they summon a demon that takes over his best friend's body, and he starts killing people. And he is linked psychically to the killer. So whenever the killer is active, he gets these red eyes that are, obviously like contact lenses, and he has to pretend he's blind because he's got the red eyes, and he can see the killer killing the person. And also, after he has sex with his girlfriend the first time, he just likes to chill out in his full body dinosaur pajamas.
As you do.
Laying in his bed in his dinosaur pajamas. And apparently they're his only pajamas because he wears the dinosaur pajamas throughout the whole movie.
I mean, I'm 38 and I have Stranger Things pajamas.
So my final crazy 80 movies in Shudder is Edge of the Axe. It's actually not a bad film about a axe murdering psycho who's killing people, as you do.
As you do.
Axe. But the identity of the killer is a nice little. I was actually surprised. This also has random Bill Paxton in this movie. Yeah. And I'm like,
God bless Bill Paxton.
Take a shot when you see Bill Paxton in an 80s horror movie. And it's actually a fun little movie. So those are my crazy 80 movies: Mausoleum, Humanoids from the Deep, Mortuary, Hellmaster, One Dark Night, and Edge of the Axe. Now, it looks like we have another comment down there. What do we got?
Oh, no, it's more on the anime stuff. Half of our comments are on the anime, so you're welcome. That was my second information.
Thanks.
All right, so why don't we plunge through to the end here?
Yes.
Let's talk about classic horror. Tom, what classic horror have you been watching lately?
Well, it's kind of funny because... Give me 1 second here. We got HBO Max because we had to do the Snyder Cut, And then after we did my taxes, realized my wife makes a heck of a lot more money than I do.
Oh,
She's gonna be sugar mommery on this
you're
one.
a deadbeat.
No, I'm a Catholic school teacher. You should really see our paychecks, right? Anyways, okay, now first is creature feature, Kaiju, War of the Gargantuas. 1966, directed by Ishiro Honda, original director of Godzilla and a whole bunch of those movies. Now, I was doing a little research, interesting of this guy, that he was drafted to serve in the Japanese army. He had to be the manager of a brothel for comfort women. Women are forced into prostitution.
Comfort women.
Yeah, so not the greatest, but Honda is definitely, I mean, he definitely loves this. Now, it's not in the Godzilla frame, but you have these two very large monsters, Sasquatch creatures, one from the mountains, one from the sea, actually. Turned out the one from the sea was a piece of the mountain one that got torn off and grew on its own. And the original...
Scuba Sasquatch.
Well, I mean, the original, I mean, the brown, they call him the brown one, the brown Sasquatch, was raised, and well, created and raised by scientists, so the role of man and science and nature. There are some actual scary scenes, because the one from the ocean hunts and eats people, and had a very scary one of him holding a sailboat, a fishing boat, and showed him underwater. That was pretty good. I mean, I watched it just because it was, hey, I remember this from many years ago watching it. And of course, when Godzilla vs. Kong came out, they had all the kaiju movies there. Now, also, two more movies to watch, classic. One the original, one the remake, The Blob.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna start off with the first one. 1958, directed by Irwin Yeaworth, starring the King of Cool himself, Steve McQueen.
Nice.
I don't think it was his first movie, but definitely maybe his first starring role movie. And simple enough, small town, a meteorite lands in there, and the blob is inside, and it starts eating people. The young people know about it, except the older, the adults don't listen to them because you young people, just all these young people, causing all these trouble. Young people, they're probably just killing the world. And it was kind of like a whole rebel without a cause
Freaking
thing.
young people.
I know, and it's then you find out later that Cole does stop it, and there were some scary moments. I mean, it wasn't graphic because it's 1958, but I think there's a new I don't know if it's new, but maybe a subgenre for horror called poke it with a stick. Such as, here's something, let me poke it with a stick. Ah, monsters. Now, having said that, let's look at its remake, which probably most people have seen, The Blob, 1988, which technically is a classic, directed by Chuck Russell, starring Kevin Dillon and Shawnee Smith.
I've seen both.
Oh yeah, now it's pretty good and pretty close to the original, except in the remake, which is 88, height of the Cold War under Reagan. Well, then let's move on to Bush. It's a government experiment in germ warfare gone haywire. So it's essentially now only got to worry about this man-eating blob, and it was actually quite scary because nobody is safe. The blob is just pretty much a virus out to kill everyone, and when it actually ate a kid, that was a little bit on the surprising side. You remember that one in the scene in the sewer? Ate the kid's friend?
Believe it or not, I've never seen The Blob.
I am sorry, I just ruined it for you then. That's available on Vudu and Amazon Prime, but yeah, it's...
The woman asked me to watch it since 1988.
No, I think it's a good movie. I think it's quite scary.
It's good.
Uh,
For a movie called The Blob, both of them are actually surprisingly good.
I know, and not to mention, you can't go wrong with Steve McQueen, the King of Cool. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You probably never saw one of his movies.
He was actually in a movie we didn't talk about tonight called Baker, Mother Maker. We'll have to talk about that next time.
All right, but how about your classics?
So my classics. First of all, again, I'm going to have to give props to Shudder for having a lot of variety. What I've really enjoyed lately is the Val Lewiston collection. Val Lewiston, from what I can tell from movies I've watched, really specialized in black and white. There was during the black and white period, which were very creeping, quiet, atmospheric horror. So I've watched Isle of Death, starring Boris Karloff,
Ooh.
dealing with a Greek vampire. So it's more like a a vampire.
Opa!
Yeah, a vampire that drains your essence more than anything else. I've also
like Colin Robinson.
also read
That's a great
watched
show, by the way.
watched
Of course.
Cat People, where this woman believes she is part of this family that is destined to basically turn into a werecat whenever they are consumed with passion. Again, a really great work of atmosphere there.
Catnip.
And
Do
then
the guys spray all over the place?
and then
No,
it was only the
catnip around.
females, only the females. And then Leopard Man, where
Ooh.
a publicity stunt for this lounge singer to have a leopard on a leash goes terribly awry when the leopard escapes and starts killing people. Except it doesn't seem like animal killings. It seems like it's someone else is taking advantage of the opportunity. Now, all three of these movies are really, really. Again, I guess your mileage may vary. If you're very easily annoyed by black and white and things like that, then you might not find these movies enjoyable. But the aesthetic is wonderful, very atmospheric, just very wonderful. So that's all I have.
Oh my!
I can give a classic horror.
Okay,
I
go
thought of
ahead,
one.
sir.
So
And this will be it. This will be our
this will be it for
ending
today.
note.
So if you want, this concept, you think you know where this is going. A movie that when watched it, within 7 days the person dies, murdered. You might think it's The Ring, but it's not. It's Roller Gator, because
Oh,
this
God,
movie,
I can see it already.
this movie from 1996, is so bad. If you watch it, you will probably kill yourself within 7 days.
Because I wasted 2 hours of my life on that.
Starring Joe Estevez.
Oh my God!
Oh,
And if I watched this movie recently,
Joe Estevez.
I'm pretty sure they just had Joe Estevez hired for the day, and they said, "What do you have for a script?" And they just said, "I don't know, just talk." And so he just talks, and they put it on the screen, and that's Roller Gator. It makes Santa Jaws, which I got a great screenshot of.
Is he stabbing him with a candy cane?
Yes, this is Santa Jaws. I will say, 1996's Roller Gator makes this and Santa Jaws seem like something worthy of an Academy Award.
Wow.
My God.
So, if you have to watch Roller Gator, I recommend watching it with riff tracks so you at least have some commentary.
And possibly lots of alcohol.
If you're 21.
All right, so to our one viewer who's still with us, thank you.
You win a new car. We
So-
didn't tell you one, but you win a new car.
You can pick it up in Lucia's parking spot.
For the
We're
most
we're
part,
giving you Kevin's car key. You Kevin's car.
for the most part, it seems like this worked out well. We only
Yeah.
got one warning that said it was buffering.
Yeah.
So there you go, folks. And I hope you've enjoyed this show. I hope you share it with people. There will be some things posted to the YouTube channel though over the next couple weeks, because after we sign off here, I think we do need to do a reaction video to the next Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
I'm up for that.
All right.
So hit that like and subscribe button, people.
That's
I
right.
love
Like
Don't
and
Hug Me,
subscribe, share. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Chuck's going to do another
Oh my
aftershock.
God! With a sweater on too.
All right. So you can click that stop, whatever is up there.
Let's keep it rolling.
Oh,
I
have a
don't
good
think
night,
so.
folks.
Good night.
Good night.
End.